Chapter 493. The towering water pillars were like Shanran soaring into the sky with unparalleled power. The primitive mutant beasts and human sovereigns, who had been fighting each other, were immediately affected by the destructive impact. An emperor-grade, ancient array, the human sovereigns and primitive mutant beasts who were affected by the impact immediately reacted and attacked together. All kinds of violent Taoist powers exploded, and a continuous sound of explosions could be heard. The hundreds of water pillars that soared into the sky were quickly shattered. However, after the water pillars exploded, they turned into rolling mist that blocked people's vision. In an instant, the center of the huge lake was covered by mist. Oh no, it's a trap. The moment the mist filled the air, the primitive mutant beasts and human sovereigns all felt a terrible danger. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Almost at the same time, figures appeared in the mist like ghosts. Following the appearance of those figures, a vast amount of divine power suddenly exploded and surged violently in all the misty areas. In an instant, many primitive mutant beasts and sovereigns were killed by the ancient divine power. Even the top sovereigns were immediately injured when they were caught off guard. The mist could not only block people's vision, but also suppress their perception. One had to know that this primitive world of Taoist power had a strong suppressive power. Now that the mist and the mist overlapped, the suppressive power almost made their perception useless. In addition, their vision was blocked by the mist, so they immediately fell into an absolute passive position. Bang! Of course, those who could reach the sovereign's level were all veterans, so their reaction was naturally very fast. When they were attacked, they all attacked with destructive attacks. Before this sudden change, the primitive mutant beasts and human sovereigns seemed to be joining forces. Immediately, the figures who appeared to attack were blown up one after another. No, this is incarnation. Soon, the human sovereigns and primitive mutant beasts realized. The attacking figures were all avatars of divine power. After being blown up, they turned into divine power and dissipated into the world. Immortal Phoenix? Suddenly, several top primitive mutant beasts reacted and immediately rushed toward the immortal Phoenix body in the center of the lake. As they rushed out, they used their divine powers and secret techniques to burn away the mist. Although the great desolate Ian mutated beasts reacted very quickly, they were still no match for Chinyu, who had long since planned to make a move. After dispersing the mist, they discovered that the spirit formations and restrictions that they had set up had all disappeared. The immortal Phoenix body that had been protecting the center had already disappeared. However, to their astonishment, those barriers and restrictions showed no signs of being broken. Someone had actually passed through the barrier they had set up in that instant without making a sound. This tactic caused the hearts of all the ancient exotic beasts present to turn cold. Could it be that there were still divine emperors who had not left? It seemed that only divine emperors could have such means. Damn it, who is it? When a mist above the lake was completely incinerated, the human sovereign venerable also realized that the immortal Phoenix body had been taken away. This caused their expressions to become extremely ugly. Could it be the faces of the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the Tianyuan Shun dynasty darkened? It was like this again. They had risked their lives to fight the primordial beasts, yet in the end, someone had reaped the benefits. This scene caused the sovereign venerable of the two sects to involuntarily think of Chinyu. Big brother, Sun Jiuxiao immediately looked at Sun Guxing and immediately asked the Emperor Heavenly Palace and the others to set up a spirit formation around them. Although the immortal Phoenix body had been taken away, it was not a bad thing for the Emperor Heavenly Palace. This was because Sun Guxing was there, and they could still use divination to divine the whereabouts of the immortal Phoenix body. Without the presence of the ancient exotic beasts and the human sovereign venerable, the chances of them succeeding were higher. The immortal Phoenix body is disappearing. Sun Guxing hurriedly performed the divination. However, halfway through the divination, he realized that the aura of the immortal Phoenix body was disappearing at an alarming speed. Sun Gushing could not believe it. Previously, he had caught a trace of the aura of the immortal phoenix body. It was impossible that he could not divine the whereabouts of the immortal phoenix body in such a short time. However, the result of the divination clearly showed that the immortal phoenix body had almost disappeared. The disappearance was as if it had been swallowed by something. At this moment, at the bottom of the giant lake, Qin Yu had already traveled thousands of miles underground. The immortal phoenix body, which had been kept in the ancient seal of the divine dragon, quickly turned into streaks of purple flowing light and floated in the air. In front of the immortal phoenix body was the somewhat adorable infant immortal phoenix. The instant the immortal phoenix body came into contact with the infant immortal phoenix body, it automatically turned into countless streaks of purple flowing light and merged with the infant immortal phoenix body. One could clearly feel that the aura of the infant immortal phoenix body was rapidly becoming stronger. The speed was extremely shocking. The spiritual treasures of heaven and earth that Qin Yu had fed before could not compare at all. Seeing that the entire immortal phoenix body was about to turn into purple flowing light and dissipate, Qin Yu came back to his senses. He quickly took out a piece of the immortal phoenix bone to seal it. Suddenly, Qin Yu's expression changed slightly. He used the earth-burrowing technique and appeared at the bottom of the giant lake. There was a figure standing in front of Qin Yu. It seemed that he was waiting for Qin Yu to appear. "It's really you." That person was staring at Qin Yu. It was AOD. After confirming that Qin Yu had reached the Emperor realm and easily snatched the immortal phoenix body from the chaotic battle between emperors, AOD was shocked. At the same time, he also became more vigilant of Qin Yu. After reaching the Emperor realm from a rank 7 martial emperor, Qin Yu had undergone a complete transformation. In the past, AOD was only slightly afraid of Qin Yu. Now he was completely vigilant. If you want to fight for the immortal phoenix body, then I'm sorry, but I've already refined it. Seeing that AOD had seen through his identity, Qin Yu, who had disguised himself, reverted to his original voice. "I came for the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon. I don't have much interest in the immortal phoenix body." AOD came back to his senses and said with a smile, "Didn't you want to recreate the eternal dragon nation? Why didn't you subdue the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon?" Speaking of the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon, Qin Yu felt a little strange. AOD's attitude toward the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon was completely different from when he was facing the purple, thunder divine firmament dragon. One wanted to subdue the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon, while the other wanted to kill it directly. Of course, what Qin Yu was really curious about was the ancient evil underworld dragon. Although the ancient evil underworld dragon was only a soul controlling the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon, it was still very powerful. However, its cultivation and grade should not be inferior to AOD's. In the future, it might have the opportunity to become an immortal gray dragon. Naturally, Qin Yu wanted to capture it. It's a long story. Speaking of the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon, I want to make a deal with you. AOD changed the topic and said, "What kind of deal?" asked Qin Yu. "I've captured the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon. You give me the 8 desolate wind flame dragons' source dragon blood, and I'll give you the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon. What do you think?" AOD's original plan was to kill the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon and cut off AOBA's right-hand man. However, after seeing Qin Yu take away the bloodthirsty, killing heavenly dragon's source dragon blood, he changed his mind. Chapter 494. After all, the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon was no longer of much use after its origin dragon blood was taken away. AOD had killed the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon because he did not want the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's body to fall into AOBA's hands. Now that it had been captured, he naturally wanted to maximize the benefits. Although AOGO's origin divine power had been taken back, its origin dragon blood was still in Qin Yu's hands. Qin Yu had once said that there was a way to extract the origin dragon blood, but he would have to pay a price for it. The bloodthirsty heavenly dragon is still alive? Qin Yu's eyes slightly shined. To him, this was truly a pleasant surprise. Of course. Aod's eyes flashed with joy. Qin Yu's expression undoubtedly showed that he could extract Gio's origin dragon blood. Sure, Qin Yu agreed readily. With his current Emperor realm cultivation, it was not difficult for him to refine a trace of origin dragon blood. On the other hand, if he obtained the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, Qin Yu's eternal dragon nation would have 3 members of the dragon clan. More importantly, the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's combat strength was comparable to that of a top sovereign. This would definitely be a great help to Qin Yu, who was about to take revenge. By the way, the Mad Dragon Sovereign also came to the Immortal Phoenix stream. It's a pity that you missed it. After the deal was made, Aod seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke. As he spoke, Aod's gaze was fixed on Qin Yu the entire time. He was observing Qin Yu's reaction. Aod had once specially investigated Qin Yu's past life, so he knew that Qin Yu and Xing Luo were good brothers. In order to determine whether or not Qin Yu was the Dragon God Emperor of the past, using the Mad Dragon Emperor to test him was the most suitable choice. What's there to pity that I missed the Mad Dragon Sovereign? Don't tell me you still think that I'm the Dragon God Sovereign? Qin Yu said calmly. Aod had guessed his identity in the primordial divine power relic. This time, Qin Yu could be said to be unperturbed. The source of his calmness was naturally because he had truly advanced to the Emperor realm. There are countless demon-level geniuses in the 9 provinces of the Heaven Domain. However, to directly reach rank 2 Emperor from rank 7 Martial Emperor, I've only read about such a heaven-defying cultivation speed in some ancient books and the legends of those reincarnators. Aod looked at Qin Yu seriously and spoke slowly. Although one of the conditions of his alliance with Qin Yu was that he couldn't tell anyone about this. But now, only he and Qin Yu were here, so Aod's action was not considered a violation of the agreement. If I really was the Dragon God Emperor, then I would have gone to find the Mad Dragon Emperor. Why would I stay in the Heavenly Imperial Palace? Qin Yu laughed. Aod's eyes flickered. Of course, he had thought about this. It was also because of this that he could not be completely sure whether or not Qin Yu was the reincarnation of the Dragon God Emperor. Looks like I was overthinking things. After looking at Qin Yu for a while, Aod withdrew his gaze. If he could be sure that Qin Yu was the reincarnation of the Dragon God Emperor, then, in the alliance between him and Qin Yu, he would possess a certain amount of superiority. Because once it was confirmed, this news would become a condition to restrain Qin Yu. But Qin Yu was quite experienced and didn't reveal the slightest bit about this question, so Aod didn't continue to ask. Of course, if the 2 sides really fell out, whether this news was true or false, it would have a certain impact on Qin Yu. When do you plan to go to the tomb of the Dragon Emperor? Qin Yu didn't linger on this question and asked about the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. I didn't expect you to reach the Emperor realm so quickly, so I need some time to prepare. Aod said. He wasn't lying. Originally, Aod thought that no matter how fast Qin Yu was, it would take several years to reach the Emperor realm. Who would have thought that Qin Yu's cultivation would make such terrifying progress in just a few months? Okay, let me know when you're ready. Qin Yu nodded. Then, shall we go out now? Although the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon fell into Aod's trap, it wasn't with him. If he wanted to make a deal, he had to leave this Dao lost space. I still have something to do. Qin Yu said. Do you need help? From Qin Yu's slightly murderous gaze, Aod was able to see some clues. No, you go out first. When I leave the sealed world, I'll find you. Qin Yu shook his head slightly. Now that he had obtained the dragon source blood and the immortal phoenix bone, it was time to hunt down the 3 great forces. Qin Yu didn't want to borrow Aod's power for this matter. If Aod knew that he took the initiative to hunt down the emperors of the 3 great forces, he would probably sense something. Aod had a very keen insight. Okay, Aod didn't insist on following him. His figure flickered slightly and disappeared into the bottom of the lake. With a thought, Qin Yu summoned the skeleton Ghost King. After devouring the blood chi of the ancient exotic beasts, the skeleton ghost king's cultivation had reached the 5th grade Emperor realm. As a 5th grade Emperor realm puppet, it would be of great help to Chinyu in this operation. After it appeared, the skeleton ghost king's bones, which were covered with savage beast marks, were filled with countless blood vessels. Soon, the skeleton ghost king condensed into a body of flesh and blood, which was very deceptive. Swoosh! Without hesitation, Chinyu and the skeleton ghost king immediately broke through the void and left. At this time, the violent battle was still going on above the giant lake. The human emperors, who had been searching for the immortal phoenix bone, were attacked crazily by the ancient exotic beasts. The ancient exotic beasts seemed to have noticed that there were no divine emperors, so their attacks were extremely fierce. It was as if they wanted to keep all the sovereigns of the human clan who had stepped into this secret realm here forever. Outnumbered, many human emperors were ready to retreat. Although the heavenly imperial palace and other forces were unwilling, they were not strong enough, so they could only retreat. Chinyu hid in the dark and did not show himself. At this time, if he appeared, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. Whether it was the human emperors or the ancient exotic beasts, they would all target him. Even if Chinyu had reached the emperor realm, he could not face so many emperors alone. Of course, Chinyu did not stay idle while watching the battle. In the spirit array disc, ancient and mysterious runes automatically merged into the 5 gods' heaven subduing array flag. Among the numerous battle powers that Chinyu possessed, the array Dao could definitely be considered as a super trump card, as long as Chinyu had enough time to prepare the array Dao. For him, it would not be difficult to defeat the strong and outnumber the strong. After all, many of the ancient arrays Chinyu had were obtained from the immortal god graveyard. The violent battle above the giant lake was not a desperate fight between the two sides, but a slow movement. The human emperors fought and retreated, while the ancient exotic beasts kept chasing. Soon, the chaotic battle was divided into more than a dozen groups, and they all left separately. Chinyu also followed closely behind, quietly tailing the group of sovereigns. That group of emperors was from the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. The Ghost Emperor Holy Island, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, and the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect were the 3 major forces. At present, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty had suffered the most damage. Chapter 495. The 2 top sovereigns were severely injured, and one of them had even lost a hand. Their combat strength was less than half of what it was at their peak. The other high-level sovereigns and Grade 5 and Grade 6 sovereigns were even more severely injured. If Chinyu wanted to kill them, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty would be the best target. When we go back, we must join forces with the other sects and destroy all these beasts. Seeing the ancient beasts chasing after them, the 2 top sovereigns of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty looked gloomy and murderous. Not only had they failed to complete the task assigned by the Divine Master, but they had also failed to do so. They had also failed to obtain the immortal phoenix body that could atone for their sins. When they went back, they would have to bear the wrath of the Divine Master. This made the 2 top sovereigns of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty extremely unhappy. Swoosh! 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 Just as the sovereigns of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty were filled with murderous intent, all of a sudden, profound formation flags appeared in the void in front of them. The array flags flashed and merged into the void. Then, ancient divine incantations appeared and formed a divine array that spread out. Half of the sky was covered by the ancient array. It was Chinyu, who had followed them all the way here, who had used the earth-burrowing technique to jump over them and set up a trap. The sudden change did not only affect the people of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. Even the ancient exotic beasts that were chasing after them immediately stopped. In front of the divine array that had appeared, they all felt a bone-chilling sense of danger. That divine array? It's him. After taking a closer look, the faces of the people of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty changed drastically. They recognized the 5 gods subduing sky formation. Previously, Qin Yu had used the five gods subduing sky formation to take away the bloodthirsty heavenly dragons, origin dragon blood. He had even killed several high-level sovereigns of the Ghost Emperor's sacred island in them. Rumble. Within the five gods' heavens subduing formation, a thunderous explosion rang out. The five gods subduing sky formation, which was filled with purple lightning, turned into five divine incantations. The divine array, with destructive power, blasted toward the people of the Tianyuan divine dynasty, causing an earth-shattering explosion. What's going on? The aura of this ancient formation seems to be getting more and more terrifying. Could it be that he didn't use his full strength earlier? Quick, find his real body. The people from the Tianyuan divine dynasty immediately resisted with all their might, using all sorts of secret skills. The degree of terror of the five gods' heaven subduing formation was far above those primeval strange beasts. They had to go all out in order to fight against it. On the other hand, the beasts weren't attacked. They were already intelligent and could tell that the five gods' heaven subduing formation was targeting the people from the sky primordial spirit dynasty. Therefore, he didn't get involved in the battle and just watch from the sidelines. Whoosh, whoosh. While the people of the Tianyuan divine dynasty were fighting against the five gods' heaven subduing formation, two figures appeared. Qin Yu and the skeleton ghost king charged towards the sky origin spirit empire with murderous intent. Slash! Qin Yu's right hand moved, and the god-slaying sword appeared, slashing out. The dazzling sword light, combined with the power of the five gods' heaven subduing formation, tore the void apart. Roar! The skeleton ghost king punched out, causing the air to explode. Countless desolate beasts, runes roared on his bones, as if 10,000 beasts were roaring. The momentum was extremely shocking. Pung pung pung. As Qin Yu and the skeleton ghost king attacked. In an instant, several ordinary Emperor Realm Masters were killed by the two's attacks. The skeleton ghost king absorbed all their vitality. Damn it, they were hiding their cultivation before. Kill them. The two top Emperor Realm Masters of the Sky Origin Spirit Dynasty had ugly expressions when they saw this. They didn't even bother to deal with the five gods' heaven subduing formation and directly charged towards Qin Yu and the skeleton ghost king. Long Hun helped the skeleton ghost king kill the other Emperor Realm Masters. Qin Yu sneered, not showing any fear as he faced them head-on. When he charged out, the murderous intent in the god-punishing formation was ready to erupt. Azure Dragon marks gradually spread in his physique, and the ancient divine force was also quietly surging at this moment. Qin Yu, who was going all out, had reached an astonishing level at this moment, causing people's hair to stand on end. At the same time, in the five gods' heaven subduing formation, two divine curse subarrays swept over from the left and right, cooperating with Qin Yu's attack. The five gods' heaven subduing formation was set up by Qin Yu, so he could naturally control it as he wished. The two top Emperor Realm Masters of the Sky Origin Spirit Dynasty wanted to completely get rid of the five gods' heaven subduing formation and turn a deal with them. That was purely wishful thinking. Sky Origin Divine Seal. Demon Divine Technique. Seeing this, the two top Emperor Realm Masters firmly locked onto Qin Yu. When the two divine incantation clones attacked, they immediately used powerful forbidden techniques. The violent Dao technique exploded, and the two divine curse subarrays were blasted away. This time, Qin Yu was facing them alone. 9. Nether Purgatory. Qin Yu sneered even more, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes as pitch-black dragon scales appeared all over his body. A pitch-black and deathly black light spread out, sweeping across the world like dark clouds, instantly covering the divine array space. The two top Emperor Realm Masters who rushed towards Qin Yu immediately fell into a dark space, unable to capture Qin Yu's figure. As Qin Yu advanced to the Emperor Realm, the divine abilities of the Dragon Clan and the secret skills of the Battle Dragon also underwent a huge transformation. Swoosh! The next moment, a dazzling beam of starlight pierced through the sky like lightning. It bombarded one of the top Emperor Realm Masters and directly shattered his secret technique. But also because of this, the top Emperor Realm Master, whose perception and vision had been stolen, instantly sensed it and quickly dodged to the side. The top Emperor Realm Master beside him immediately used a secret technique to disperse the pitch-black light. Roar! But at this moment, there was a faint, earth-shaking dragon roar. Then, an overwhelming blood mist surged and swept across. How is this possible? How can he use the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's source divine ability? The two top Emperor Realm Masters of the Sky, Origin Spirit Dynasty. They had just broken through the 9 Serenities purgatory space when they were covered by the overwhelming blood mist. This made their expressions change drastically again. They were in disbelief, because the blood mist was the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's source divine ability. They had besieged the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon before, so they had a clear understanding of the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's source divine ability. Naturally, they had a very clear experience of it, so there was no mistake. Qin Yu, who had taken away the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's source dragon blood, could actually use the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's source divine ability, capturing the dragon blood and obtaining the divine ability of the dragon clan. In this case, isn't exactly the same as the Dragon God Emperor. The two top Emperor Realm Masters of the Sky, Origin Spirit Dynasty, did not have their current cultivation 1,000 years ago. They did not participate in the Battle of the Graveyard of the Immortal God. But this did not mean that they did not know anything about the Dragon God Emperor from 1,000 years ago. This discovery made their hair stand on end, and they felt a chill run down their spine. The Sky Origin Spirit Dynasty had paid a huge price in the Battle of the Graveyard of the Immortal God. They had not recovered from this price until now. Chapter 496. At their peak, the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty was strong enough to invade the central region. But now, if Emperor God Tianyuan had not been there, they would have been expelled from the East Continent, just like the sacrificial evil god dynasty. It was easy to imagine the number of Emperor Realm Masters who had died or been injured. Space-time ancient killing array. Ancient superpower. Qin Yu ignored the shock of the two top sovereigns and continued to use his killing moves. The ancient divine power surged violently, and the power of space-time exploded. With Qin Yu as the center, the area within a radius of a few hundred feet turned into a zone of destruction. Under Qin Yu's killing move that could be said to have used all of his trump cards. The two top sovereigns were severely injured and flew back while vomiting blood. Sacrificial, immortal, forbidden skill. But Qin Yu did not stop attacking. His body was covered in white light. As the god-slaying sword slashed out, a beam of white light flashed at the sword radiance. Poof! Flesh and blood burst out. The two peak sovereigns of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, who were already severely injured, were killed. The sacrificial immortal technique pierced through their bodies and destroyed their flesh and bones. Escape. Although their bodies had been destroyed, the two top sovereigns still reacted quickly. Almost at the moment of being attacked, they immediately used their secret skills. Their pale and frightened sovereign souls escaped from their bodies. Whoosh! At the same time, they joined forces to cast a secret technique and tore open a crack in space. They seemed to want to escape through the void. Seal. Unfortunately, their opponent was Qin Yu, who had reached the peak of the divine sovereign level. Qin Yu had already seen through their intentions. His hands changed. The soul-devouring curse pressed down like a giant pagoda and suppressed their sovereign souls in the void. Qin Yu waved his left hand, and the sealing divine light spread out. The sovereign souls of the two top sovereigns were restrained and sealed. Emperor God Palace. The two top sovereigns were experienced and knowledgeable. When they were sealed, they immediately recognized that it was the Emperor God Palace's secret skill. But it was too late. In the void that was covered by the 9 Serenities, purgatory, and the bloodthirsty killing prison, no one would know that they had been sealed by the Saint Emperor. Qin Yu did not immediately destroy their Emperor's soul, but only sealed it. Thousands of years had passed, and the world had changed. The Tianyuan Divine Dynasty was probably not the same as he had known it to be. Therefore, he wanted to know more about the Tianyuan divine dynasty. It was impossible to take revenge on the 12 ancient emperors all at once. Destroying them one by one was the right way to go. Before he took action, he naturally had to understand the details of the 12 ancient emperors. When Qin Yu killed the 2 peak emperors. The other sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty were also killed by the attacks of the skeleton ghost king, the dragon soul, and the 5 gods heaven subduing formation. The 9 hells purgatory and the bloodthirsty killing prison had a terrifying suppressive effect on the martial artists of the Tianyuan divine dynasty. However, it had no effect on the skeleton ghost king and the dragon soul. This was because the 2 of them could directly receive information from Qin Yu. Under such circumstances, the sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty naturally found it hard to resist. When Qin Yu also joined the battle, the sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty immediately suffered a devastating blow. Qin Yu's combat strength was above that of the skeleton ghost king. Not long after, more than a dozen sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty were killed by Qin Yu and the skeleton ghost king. Qin Yu collected the sovereign's Sumeru rings and immediately put away the divine array and left. The Tianyuan divine dynasty was only one of his targets. Qin Yu did not intend to let go of the people of the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the Dragon Tiger divine sect. This time, the sovereigns of the 3 sects had suffered heavy injuries in this path technique space, and their combat strength had been greatly reduced. This was an excellent opportunity for Qin Yu. For example, if the 2 peak sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty were in their peak condition, even if Qin Yu used all his means, it was unlikely that he could kill them. Even if the peak sovereigns were trapped, they would not be killed so easily. As the skeleton ghost king flew, it devoured the vitality of the sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty, and its aura became stronger and stronger. The vitality of more than a dozen sovereigns was a great supplement for the skeleton ghost king. Qin Yu hunted the sovereigns of the 3 sects not only because of old grudges, but also because he wanted to help the skeleton ghost king strengthen its cultivation. Who are they? When the 5 gods heaven subduing array dissipated, the 9 nether purgatory and the bloodthirsty prison disappeared. The exotic beasts reacted, but they could not catch up with them. Just the 2 of them had killed more than a dozen sovereigns of the Tianyuan divine dynasty, including 2 peak sovereigns. Such combat prowess was simply frightening. Perhaps only a divine emperor would be able to do such a thing. Even if they attacked together, they would only be courting death. Tianyuan divine dynasty. After Qin Yu and the exotic beasts left, Aod quietly appeared. He did not leave the sealed world, but had been tailing Qin Yu from afar with a secret technique. He wanted to see what Qin Yu's purpose was. The result was somewhat unexpected. Qin Yu actually took the initiative to kill the people of the Tianyuan divine dynasty. From the looks of it, he seemed to have a great grudge with the Tianyuan divine dynasty. After pondering for a moment, Aod looked in the direction Qin Yu disappeared and followed him again. Although this sealed world could strongly suppress one's perception, Aod had a secret technique. He could sense the fluctuations of the dragon blood on Qin Yu's body and the divine abilities of the dragon clan. As long as Qin Yu used them, Aod could detect them. Xiao. At this moment, Qin Yu, who was breaking through the void, had already locked onto the sovereigns of the Dragon Tiger divine sect. With the help of the Stars of Fortune, the suppression of perception in this sealed world was weakened to the extreme by Qin Yu. As for the Stars of Fortune that were consumed, they were condensed again after killing the sovereigns. The stars of more than a dozen sovereigns were not a joke. Not long after, Qin Yu caught up with the Dragon Tiger Divine Sex Group. The Dragon Tiger Divine Sex Group, who had been bitten by the exotic beasts, were not as fast as Qin Yu. After a little preparation, Qin Yu attacked again. There were still more than 20 sovereigns of the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect, including 3 peak sovereigns. Like the people of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, they were all seriously injured. Just like how he dealt with the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty's group, Qin Yu used the same trick. With the five gods' heavens subduing array and divine abilities and secret techniques, he wantonly slaughtered the Dragon Tiger Divine Sex group. However, compared to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasties group, something unexpected happened when he dealt with the Dragon Tiger Divine Sex group. A peak sovereigns had been pierced by the immortal sacrifice technique and knew that he could not survive, so he self-destructed. Even though Qin Yu noticed it in time and sealed it, he was not able to stop it. The self-destruction of a peak Emperor Realm Master was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The peak sovereigns and ordinary sovereigns of the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect were all killed. Even though Qin Yu had the divine dragon tyrannical body of an emperor, he was still seriously injured. The skeleton Ghost King almost fell apart, and even the five gods' heavens subduing array was destroyed. However, the other two peak sovereigns of the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect were prepared. They took the opportunity to break out of the array and escaped without looking back. Although the plan to destroy the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect had been foiled, one peak sovereigns and several peak sovereigns had caused the Dragon Tiger Divine Sect a lot of losses. Therefore, Qin Yu did not chase after them. Chapter 497. After dispersing the array, Qin Yu came to a barren mountain and used his dragon qi to heal his injuries. The skeleton Ghost King quickly absorbed his qi and blood, and its displaced skeleton gradually recovered. Although the skeleton Ghost King's cultivation was close to the 6th grade Emperor Realm, compared to a top Emperor Realm Master, there was still an insurmountable gap. After all, the skeleton Ghost King didn't have a secret technique that could greatly increase his cultivation like Qin Yu. Has he been secretly following me? After recovering from his injuries, Qin Yu consumed his star providence to sense the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the others. However, he didn't find the Ghost Emperor Holy Island. Instead, he found AOD, who had been following him. We can't let him go like this. The dragon soul appeared and said. So far, AOD was the only one who had guessed Qin Yu's identity. This was an extremely unstable factor for Qin Yu. If he couldn't control it, he could only get rid of it. Otherwise, once the two sides fell out, Qin Yu's identity would be completely exposed. The reason why they could form an alliance now was because of the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. When this matter was over, the relationship between the two sides would probably change. At that time, AOD would have to be dealt with. Judging from these two battles, Qin Yu is now able to fight and even kill a top Emperor Realm Master. However, that was only a one-on-one battle. If there were too many of them, and he was even targeted, then he could only run. Even a top Emperor Realm Master was like this, not to mention a divine Emperor Realm Master who could easily suppress a top Emperor Realm Master. Therefore, even if Qin Yu started to take revenge, his identity still couldn't be exposed. If not, then even if he wanted to take revenge, he would only be targeted by a single force. Once exposed, Star Luo and the 12 ancient emperors would definitely join forces. That situation was really bad for Qin Yu. Indeed, I have to deal with it. Qin Yu's eyes flickered, although he and AOD had become friends after fighting. However, no matter what, he could not bet his life on AOD. It seems that he has already left. Qin Yu once again consumed his qi, but he still couldn't sense the Ghost Emperor's sacred island, so he gave up. Putting away the skeleton Ghost King that was still recovering, Qin Yu took off the mask on his face and returned to Shunfeng's appearance. Since the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the others had already left, there was no need for Qin Yu to disguise himself. After thinking for a while, Qin Yu rushed towards the entrance of this Dao technique world. Swoosh! However, not long after Qin Yu took off his mask, two sharp sounds could be heard. It was Sun Gushing and Sun Gushing. After Qin Yu did not deliberately conceal his aura, Sun Gushing quickly divined his location. Looks like he's fine. This fluctuation, Sun Gushing and Sun Jiuxiao let out a sigh of relief when they saw that Qin Yu was safe and sound. Previously, the primordial beasts had gone berserk, and Qin Yu had suddenly disappeared without a trace. They were really worried that Qin Yu had encountered some danger. 2nd grade, Emperor Realm. However, in the next moment, Sun Gushing and Sun Jiuxiao's eyes narrowed. Their bodies were about to disappear into the void. They had heard Qin Yu say that as long as he received dragon blood, he would be able to reach the Emperor realm. His cultivation could break through to the Emperor realm. However, when they saw it for themselves, Sun Gushing and Sun Jiuxiao still found it hard to believe. Going from third-grade martial emperor to second-grade emperor realm was equivalent to crossing a super big realm. What kind of secret technique could have such a heaven-defying effect? In fact, they didn't know that Qin Yu's cultivation had already reached 7th grade martial emperor. Otherwise, even with the dragon blood of the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, Qin Yu would not be able to reach the emperor realm. Shen Feng, could it be? After a while, Sun Jiuxiao came back to his senses. He had seen heaven-burying sword immortal before, so he couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity when he saw Qin Yu again. Heaven-burying sword immortal and Qin Yu's rapid increase in cultivation were too similar. Although Qin Yu's increase in cultivation wasn't as shocking as heaven-burying sword immortals. However, it still far exceeded the normal cultivation speed. If the secret technique left behind by the 3 emperors that Qin Yu mentioned was only left behind by a prince, then the most likely possibility was that Qin Yu is also a reincarnator like heaven-burying sword immortal. Elder Sun, seeing Sun Gushing and Sun Jiuxiao, Qin Yu went up to them. Let's go. Although they were extremely shocked and surprised, at this time, Sun Gushing and Sun Jiuxiao didn't ask anything and immediately flew away with Qin Yu. After half an hour, the 3 of them met up with the other Emperor Realm elders of the Sky Emperor Palace and flew towards the entrance of the sealed world in the Dao Lost space. The Sky Emperor Palace had paid a great price for this trip to the Immortal Phoenix Stream. There were more than 30 Emperor Realm elders who had originally been sent by Yang Kai to accompany Yang Kai. Now, there were only a dozen of them left. Almost half of the Emperor Realm elders had died. The Sky Emperor Palace and the others didn't have a good atmosphere along the way. They didn't get the Immortal Phoenix body and the ancient Divine Phoenix bone, one of the 4 great divine medicines, was tantamount to losing their lead. This naturally put Sun Gushing and the other descendants of the 3 emperors in a bad mood. It took them nearly 2 days to enter the Dao Lost space and find the location of the Immortal Phoenix body. However, less than 6 hours later, they flew out of the Divine Palace in a straight line and appeared in the depths of the Immortal Phoenix Stream. Half a day later, they flew out of the Immortal Phoenix Stream and returned to the ancient Desolation Land where exotic beasts appeared from time to time. Elder Sun, did you get the ancient Divine Phoenix bone? As they flew out of the ancient Desolation Land, Qin Yu broke the heavy atmosphere. No, I don't know who suddenly appeared halfway and took away the Immortal Phoenix body. After suspecting that Qin Yu was a reincarnator, Sun Jiuxiao's attitude towards Qin Yu also changed. Even though Qin Yu had saved the Sky Emperor Palace before, in Sun Jiuxiao's eyes, he was still a junior. However, Sun Jiuxiao had completely abandoned this thought now. Actually, I got the inheritance of the Immortal Phoenix in the Divine Palace. Hearing that, Qin Yu said, The inheritance of the Immortal Phoenix? After hearing Qin Yu's words, Sun Gushing, Sun Jiuxiao, and the other people's faces lit up. Could it be, apart from that, I also got half of the Immortal Phoenix bone? Only after looking all around did Qin Yu move his right hand. The Immortal Phoenix bone that he had sealed appeared in his hand. It really is the Immortal Phoenix bone. Huh. Sun Gushing quickly took the Immortal Phoenix bone and felt it carefully. He was overjoyed. Sun Jiuxiao and the other descendants of the 3 emperors could not hide their excitement. This was really a turn of events. With the Immortal Phoenix bone, they had found 3 of the 4 great divine herbs. As long as they found the immortal spiritual herbs, they would be able to refine the Immortal Emperor pills. Qin Yu, could he be the one who took away the Immortal Phoenix body? Sun Jiuxiao looked deeply at Qin Yu. He did not think that things could be so coincidental. Of course, Sun Jiuxiao could not ask Qin Yu directly about this. Even now, he could not tell Sun Gushing and the others. Let's go. Sun Gushing put away the Immortal Phoenix bone like it was a treasure and left quickly with Qin Yu and the others. The originally oppressive atmosphere also dissipated completely. Everyone carried an unconcealable excitement. Chapter 498. 7 days later, the group from Heavenly Imperial Palace arrived at Cloud Star Imperial Territory in the East Continent. Sun Guxing and the others were about to teleport back to Heavenly Imperial Palace. After learning that Qin Yu was going to stay in Cloud Star Imperial Territory for a few days, they split up. Sun Jiuxiao and the others accompanied Qin Yu in Cloud Star Imperial Territory. Sun Guxing took the immortal phoenix bone and teleported back to the spirit state. There were 2 reasons why Qin Yu stayed in the Cloud Star Imperial Domain. First, it was the deal with AOD. Second, he promised to refine the Ice Heart Heavenly Spirit Pill for Su Xiaoya. In this trip to the immortal phoenix stream, Qin Yu killed dozens of Emperor Realm Masters. The various resources he obtained could be described as a sea. He had already collected all the spirit materials needed to refine the Ice Heart Heavenly Spirit Pill. 1 day later, after Qin Yu refined the Ice Heart Heavenly Spirit Pill, he went to find Su Xiaoya. After giving the Ice Heart Heavenly Spirit Pill to Su Xiaoya, Qin Yu returned to the ancient city and waited for AOD. He could find Su Xiaoya with the bronze mask, but it was difficult for him to detect AOD. He could only leave a secret signal in the ancient city and wait for AOD to come. 2 days later, AOD brought the sealed Black Sea as promised. Qin Yu refined a trace of AO Jiu's dragon blood source and made a deal. The 2 agreed to go to the tomb of the Dragon Emperor in a few months. After the matter was settled, Qin Yu did not stay and returned to Heavenly Imperial Palace with Sun Jiuxia and the others. At this time, the news of what happened in the Immortal Phoenix stream spread. The appearance of the Immortal Phoenix soul and Immortal Phoenix bone shocked the entire East Continent. However, the news of the appearance of Mad Dragon Emperor and the other divine emperors besieging the mysterious sword cultivator spread. Not only the East Continent, but the entire 9 continents of the Heaven Domain was shocked. If it were just 5 ordinary divine emperors, it would not have caused such a huge commotion. However, 5 divine emperors appeared this time. Not only the divine masters of the 4 top forces, but also Star Luo, who ranked first on the emperor list. The appearance of these 5 people together shocked the people of the Heaven Domain. More importantly, the Star Luo Sex group of 5 had joined forces to deal with a single sword cultivator. In the current Heaven Domain, who could make Star Luo and the other 4 divine emperors work together to deal with him. The identity of the heaven-burying sword immortal caused a heated discussion in the entire 9 prefectures. The level of excitement far surpassed the birth of the immortal phoenix's soul and body. Countless divine emperors showed up one after another to inquire about the inside story. Soon after, the Sky Burier sword immortal called the Mad Dragon Venerable Sovereign and the others juniors. They might be reincarnators. Even the princes of the Heavenly Spirit Divine Dynasty were dug out. Heavenly Imperial Palace in the northern region of the spiritual state. The sword cultivator being chased by the 5 sovereigns is Yi Xiaoning of the Heavenly Spirit God Dynasty. Hearing Sun Jiuxiao's words, Shi Tiangang was somewhat in disbelief. Sun Jiuxiao and the others had only heard of Yi Xiaoning from the intelligence reports. Shi Tiangang had seen Yi Xiaoning in person during the spiritual state battle ranking competition. After the initial shock, Shi Tiangang finally understood why Yi Xiaoning was on the spiritual state battle ranking list. If he was a reincarnator, he could indeed defeat the younger generation as a first-grade martial emperor. However, the Heavenly Spirit Divine Dynasty would become the eye of the storm. It was even possible that the situation in the spiritual state, which was already in turmoil, would change drastically. Palace Master Shun Feng's cultivation has also reached the 2nd grade Emperor realm. Seeing that Shi Tiangang was deep in thought, Sun Jiuxiao spoke again. 2nd grade Emperor realm. Shen Feng got the dragon blood. Shi Tiangang was overjoyed when he heard that. Now that Qin Yu had been conferred as the Saint Prince, Shi Tiangang was naturally very happy that his cultivation had made such a big breakthrough. However, when he saw Sun Jiuxiao's serious and even solemn expression, his voice came to an abrupt halt. Shi Tiangang only then noticed that Sun Jiuxiao had used the word also. It was not strange to mention that word, but when it was mentioned together with Yi Xiaoning's identity as a reincarnate Jiuxiao, you mean that Shun Feng might also be a reincarnata? Sun Guxing was stunned. Although he had also gone to the immortal fiend extreme this time, he did not see Zantian sword immortal. Therefore, he did not think that Qin Yu would be a reincarnator. It can't be, right? Sun Yunlong's gaze froze. Although there were often rumors about reincarnators in various ancient books, every existence that could be reincarnated was an existence that once stood at the peak of the heaven domain, and it was extremely rare. Could Qin Yu be a reincarnator? No, judging from Qin Yu's growth speed, it is not impossible. Shi Tiangang came back to his senses and spoke slowly. When he first came, Qin Yu's aptitude was not very outstanding. However, as time passed, Qin Yu's aptitude became more outstanding, which completely broke the norm. At that time, Qin Yu had inherited all the divine powers of the three ancient emperors. They thought that Qin Yu was the prophesied person. Therefore, they took it for granted that there was something special about Qin Yu, and it was very normal. However, now that they thought about it, Qin Yu went to the Blood Demon continent to train when he first came to the Imperial Palace. When he returned unscathed, it was enough to explain the problem. One had to know that Qin Yu's cultivation was only at the martial ancestor realm back then. The Blood Demon continent was a place where even martial emperors could encounter danger. As for the trip to the void space where the younger generation of martial emperors gathered, the matter of the extraterritorial demon race in the Jiuzhong Wu domain and the invasion of the evil god dynasty by the extraterritorial demon race, Qin Yu was able to escape unscathed time and time again. Now that they thought about it, it was even more evident that Qin Yu was not an ordinary person. What should we do now? Should we detain Shen Feng? Seeing that Shi Tiangang, Sun Guxing, and Sun Jiuxiao were all silent, Sun Yunlang asked. No, Sun Jiuxiao said directly. It is indeed inappropriate. Now, only Qin Yu can refine the immortal emperor pill. If we detain him, won't we be cutting off our own path of retreat? Sun Guxing also shook his head. Ever since they learned that the extraterritorial demon race could control the primordial divine power, now, the descendants of the three sovereigns and core sovereigns were all thinking of ways to purify the primordial divine power in their true yuan. If they did not use the primordial divine power, their battle strength would be weaker than other peak sovereigns. Now, the most important thing for them was to refine the immortal emperor pill as soon as possible. Therefore, no matter what, they could not do anything to anger Qin Yu. Whether Shen Feng is a reincarnator or not, this is something that only the four of us can know. As for our attitude toward Shen Feng, just treat him the same as before. Whether Shen Feng is a reincarnator or not, judging from what he has done, he has no ill intentions toward us. Shi Tiangang pondered for a while, then spoke slowly. From his seven-colored celestial qilin to the immortal phoenix bone, Qin Yu had made great contributions to Imperial Sky Palace. Judging from this, even if Qin Yu was a reincarnator, he had no ill intentions toward Imperial Sky Palace. Of course, before they figured out the mystery of Qin Yu, they still had to be on guard. Now, they could no longer consider Qin Yu as a member of the younger generation with a demonic aptitude. Chapter 499. Let's put the matter of Shun Feng aside for now. There's news about the immortal spirit grass. Shi Tiangang changed the topic and talked about something extremely important to Heavenly Imperial Palace. Immortal spirit grass? Hearing Shi Tiangang's words, Sun Guxing and the other two were overjoyed. They had just obtained the immortal phoenix bone, and now there was news about the immortal spirit grass. This was really a blessing from the heavens. According to the intelligence, the immortal spirit grass has appeared in the Middle States Saint Realm. Although this news is not confirmed, I have already sent people to the Middle State. Once it's confirmed, We will leave for the middle state immediately. Sure, Tiangang could not hide his excitement. As long as they could get the immortal spirit grass, they could refine the immortal emperor pill. Of course, under his excitement, Sure Tiangong's eyes were also a little solemn. The middle state was the place where the most masters of the heaven domain gathered. If the news about the immortal spirit grass was true, those divine emperor realm masters would probably move out. This was a huge pressure for Heavenly Imperial Palace. After all, there was no divine emperor realm master in Heavenly Imperial Palace. Once those divine emperors intervened, if they wanted to get the immortal spirit grass, they would have to pay a huge price. However, no matter how big the price was, the immortal spirit grass was the last divine medicine, and they had to get it. It's a pity that Senior Uncle Song's whereabouts are unknown. If only he could help. Hearing this, Sun Yunlang was silent for a while before he sighed. Although the top forces of the spiritual state did not have any divine emperor realm masters. However, in the history of these forces, divine emperors had appeared before. For example, Heavenly Imperial Palace not only had a divine emperor realm master 700 years ago, but he was also a high-level divine emperor. That period could be said to be the most relaxed period in the history of Heavenly Imperial Palace since the end of the Ancient Era. Heavenly Imperial Palace's forces had even unified the entire northern region, and there were many masters. Unfortunately, that high-level divine emperor disappeared during an exploration of the ancient ruins, and his whereabouts were unknown. Because of this, the other forces of the spiritual state were not satisfied with Heavenly Imperial Palace's domination of the northern region, and there were frequent riots. The evil sacrificial dynasty also took advantage of the chaos in Heavenly Imperial Palace to directly invade the northern region of the spiritual state. Until now, the northern region had 2 tigers entrenched in the northern region. Senior Uncle Song's lifeblood card hasn't cracked. He's definitely still alive. Maybe he's been trying to break through to the peak of the Emperor realm all these years. Sun Gushing said. Although he could not divine Martial Uncle Song's whereabouts, he was certain that Martial Uncle Song was still alive. I hope so. Sure Tiangang sighed softly. It was naturally a good thing that Martial Uncle Song had returned. But now, there had been no news of him at all. Thus, it was impossible to count on him. They could only rely on themselves. Heavenly Imperial Palace and the Glorious Palace. In the ancient chamber, Qin Yu sat cross-legged in the air. In front of him, an ancient cauldron with formation patterns was burning with golden flames. Within the divine cauldron, a pitch-black spear with mysterious dragon patterns floated in the air. It was constantly being burned by the terrifying golden flames. It was the 9 nether dragon spear that was being refined by the golden flame heaven incinerating fire. Along the way, Qin Yu relied on his attainments in artifact forging to constantly temper the 9 nether dragon spear. After fusing with the azure demonic phoenix and watering it with several types of origin dragon blood, the grade of the 9 nether dragon spear had reached the level of an emperor artifact. Moreover, the 9 nether dragon spear was made from dragon bones and was forged by Qin Yu with the secret technique of the dragon race. It could continuously fuse with dragon blood and spiritual treasures to improve its grade. It could be said that this was a spiritual treasure with unlimited potential. Therefore, Qin Yu planned to forge the 9 nether dragon spear into a spiritual treasure like the divine dragon ancient seal. It was not just an ordinary emperor artifact. Of course, the 9 nether dragon spear was still in the tempering stage. It would still take some time before it could truly take shape. Since he had the god-slaying sword in hand, Qin Yu was not in a hurry. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He dripped the source dragon blood of the bloodthirsty sky, killing dragon onto the 9 underworld dragon spear. Vaguely, there was a deafening dragon's roar. A faint red dragon pattern appeared on the 9 nether dragon spear, which was covered in dragon patterns. The bloodthirsty killing intent emitted, adding a strong demonic feeling to the 9 nether dragon spear. Whoosh! Seeing that the tempering of the 9 nether dragon spear was progressing steadily, Qin Yu kept it and flicked his finger. The Medicine King's divine cauldron appeared. Accompanying the appearance of the Medicine King's divine cauldron was a sea of spiritual herbs. Chi-chi. All kinds of spiritual herbs were thrown into the Medicine King's divine cauldron in an orderly manner and were quickly refined. The spiritual pills that Qin Yu was refining now were for the purple thunder divine firmament dragon and the golden flame heaven incinerating dragon to increase their cultivation, compared to the infant immortal phoenix that could devour any spiritual treasure. The purple thunder divine firmament dragon and the golden flame heaven incinerating dragon were much more picky about spiritual pills that could increase their cultivation. Other than the ancient divine pills that Qin Yu specially refined, they were not interested in other ordinary spiritual pills at all. This was because ordinary divine pills were not of much use to them in increasing their cultivation. Now, Qin Yu's cultivation had reached the second grade Emperor realm. The Skeleton Ghost King was also close to the 6th grade Emperor realm. As for the purple thunder divine firmament dragon, it was still at the peak of the martial Emperor realm. As for the golden flame heaven incinerating dragon, needless to say, it was only a 4th grade martial emperor. To the current Qin Yu, a battle power of this level was already of no help at all. Therefore, increasing the cultivation of the dragon clan was of the utmost importance. In Qin Yu's plan, the dragon clan of the eternal dragon country would be his powerful combat strength in the future. As long as he could subdue enough dragon clan members, their cultivation would increase. Even if Qin Yu was alone, he would be able to destroy the 12 ancient emperors and the Star Luo Empire without relying on the Heavenly Imperial Palace. After refining thousands of spiritual pills and consuming most of the spiritual herbs, Qin Yu kept the Medicine King's divine cauldron. Then, Qin Yu appeared in the ancient seal of the divine dragon. In the space of the ancient seal, thousands of ferocious blood-red Shunran floated. It was the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, the Black Sea. However, although the bloodthirsty killing intent emitted by the Black Sea had not weakened, the aura of the dragon blood was obviously extremely weak. Not only had the origin dragon blood been taken away, but the dragon soul had also been controlled by Ao Ba. It had fought against several top sovereigns and was eventually suppressed by Aod. If the Black Sea's dragon body had not been strong enough, it would have died by now. As if sensing Qin Yu's arrival, the Black Sea's lake-like eyes opened slightly. That blood-like crimson dragon was coldly staring at Qin Yu. How is it? Has he decided to submit? Qin Yu walked up to the dragon's soul and asked. He's quite stubborn. It seems that he's not willing to be killed. The dragon's soul shook its head. Then there's no other way. Qin Yu looked at the Black Sea and thought. The ancient seal of the divine dragon trembled, and a supreme dragon might, as vast as the starry sky spread. The Black Sea, which had not been affected much at first, was shocked when it sensed the supreme dragon's might. The immortal ancient Shenron's might made the Black Sea's soul tremble. Chapter 500. I don't like to be long-winded, so I will only ask you once. Submit or die. Qin Yu said indifferently. Even if he forcibly controlled a dragon that was unwilling to submit, it would be useless to him. Qin Yu would not keep such a threat by his side. If I die, His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, will definitely descend. At that time, your end will come. Xianhai's cold and weak voice sounded. Dragon Emperor? Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Ancient, evil underworld dragon. Yes, His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, will unify all the dragon races in the extraterritorial realm. Whether it is the extraterritorial realm or the heaven domain, they will all submit to our dragon race. Xianhai said coldly. If that's the case, I really don't dare to kill you. Qin Yu smiled and moved his right hand. A beam of divine light descended from the divine dragon ancient seal and hit Xianhai. Xianhai, whose blood-red dragon eyes were incomparably cold, was suppressed on the spot before he could react. Dragon Soul, you will control the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon from now on. Even if Xianhai was unwilling to submit, Qin Yu had a way to control his dragon body, which had the battle strength of a high-level emperor. After speaking, Qin Yu imprisoned Xianhai's dragon soul, but did not destroy it. "Are you keeping the dragon soul to fish?" The dragon soul nodded and asked. He and Qin Yu had a telepathic connection, so he could roughly guess why Qin Yu imprisoned and sealed the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon's dragon soul. "Yes, I hope that the ancient evil underworld dragon will come personally," as the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon said. The smile on Qin Yu's face grew wider. He had no plans to go to the extraterritorial realm for now. If the ancient evil underworld dragon really came to the heaven domain to look for him, for Qin Yu, it was equivalent to an opportunity delivered to his doorstep. After dealing with the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, Qin Yu began to prepare for the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Now that his cultivation had officially reached the Emperor realm, the Spirit Array Disc could continue to be upgraded. The Ancient Space-Time Ancient Slaughter Array, Five Gods Heaven Subduing Array, and other ancient arrays should be further strengthened. Although the God-Slaying Formation was still unable to control the entire killing formation, it was able to control more and more killing intent. This was enough to become Qin Yu's trump card. Next time, if he encountered a peak Emperor Venerable, it wouldn't be like the Dragon and Tiger Divine sect, whose mission had failed because of self-detonation. While Qin Yu was busy preparing, 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Qin Yu wasn't just making preparations. From time to time, he would leave the heavenly imperial palace to hunt down the Emperor Realm Masters of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. His goal was naturally to gather information about the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Qin Yu was a little concerned about the information he had obtained. During this period of time, the sacrificial evil god dynasty and a few other factions had started to move frequently. The heavenly imperial palace had obviously noticed this as well, and was also secretly working with the forces that had already formed an alliance. Qin Yu had a premonition that another great battle might occur, so he didn't act rashly for the time being. He was waiting for the right moment. The Skeleton Ghost King, on the other hand, had broken through to the 6th grade Emperor realm because of the emperors that Qin Yu occasionally killed. In a boundless barren mountain, Puchi, Qin Yu attacked, his Dao technique raging, and a terrifying spear with dense killing intent tore through the sky. A 1st grade martial emperor from the sacrificial evil god dynasty was killed with a single strike. The Skeleton Ghost King appeared and instantly devoured his vitality. Who the hell is it? After killing the Emperor Venerable, soul-searching, and soul-refining to obtain information, Qin Yu looked around the void without leaving a trace. Several times before, when he left the heavenly imperial palace to hunt the emperors of the sacrificial evil god dynasty, Qin Yu felt that someone had been secretly watching him the entire time. Today, when it appeared again, Qin Yu felt even more strongly about this feeling. Could it be that the sacrificial evil god dynasty is aware of it? The dragon soul, after using its space-time divine ability, did not notice that someone was secretly watching them. However, since Qin Yu felt that he was being watched, it shouldn't be wrong. Qin Yu had experienced thousands of battles in his previous life, so he wouldn't have such a feeling for no reason. It seems that I'd better keep a low profile for now. Qin Yu thought for a while, then quietly turned around and left. He also suspected that the sacrificial blood god dynasty was watching him. So this time, he deliberately made sufficient preparations and came to this area close to the sacrificial evil god dynasty. But the result was the same as the previous times, until he killed the Emperor Venerable of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. The Emperor Venerable, who was secretly watching him, did not show up. This feeling made Qin Yu very uncomfortable, and he became more vigilant. At this time, in a void thousands of miles away from the Bear Mountain, 2 figures, using some kind of secret technique, were able to see Qin Yu's battle in the entire city. The 2 figures were none other than the handsome white-robed man from the ancient demon clan and the black-robed man from the ancient demon clan. The person who took the god-slaying sword should be him, but the muscular man in black looked at Qin Yu's disappearing figure in the light mirror and frowned slightly. He actually reached the 2nd grade Emperor realm. This cultivation speed is simply too fast. The handsome man in white had a grave look in his eyes. Since last time, He had suspected that Qin Yu was the person who took the god-slaying sword and the ancient heavenly rock spirit. The two of them had set up secret sentries around the heavenly imperial palace, and finally, they had seen Qin Yu appear. However, Qin Yu's cultivation had caused them to be even more astonished. Back in the ancient god ruins, Qin Yu was only a 7th grade martial emperor. Now, only half a year had passed, and he had reached the 2nd grade emperor realm. They had never seen such a cultivation speed, whether it was in the outer realm or the heaven domain. It was only recorded in the ancient books. What kind of opportunity did this brat get? The muscular man in black frowned even more. Qin Yu's growth speed was too frightening. If Qin Yu continued to grow, it would be almost impossible for them to take back the god-slaying sword and the ancient heavenly rock spirit. What if it's not because of an opportunity? The handsome man in white seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes became a little serious. You mean this brat might be a reincarnator like the prince of the heavenly spirit divine dynasty? The muscular man in black was a little puzzled at first, but after looking at the handsome man in white, he immediately understood what he meant. It's not impossible. The handsome man in white nodded slightly. If that's the case, then we have to report this news to the clan. The muscular man in black said, "Let's see if we can capture him first. If we fail, then report to the clan and ask the divine elders to take action." The handsome man in white thought for a while and said, "At this time, Qin Yu did not hunt down the sacrificial evil god dynasty. After another month, when there was still no news from AOD, he decided to go out. When he learned that Qin Yu had asked to leave the heavenly imperial palace alone. Suspecting that Qin Yu was a reincarnator, the heavenly imperial palace did not forcibly send Emperor Realm experts to protect Qin Yu this time. Qin Yu did not leave the heavenly imperial palace to look for the Dragon Emperor. It was because of something that had been on his mind for a long time. The underworld stone, the underworld ghost land. When subduing the purple thunder divine cloud dragon, Qin Yu obtained the underworld stone left behind by Fairy Shualan in the void space. Chapter 501. According to the purple thunder divine cloud dragon, Fairy Shualan had left a message that if she did not return, Qin Yu, who had obtained the underworld stone, would go to the underworld ghost land marked by the underworld stone. Before this, Qin Yu had been busy looking for dragon blood to improve his cultivation because his cultivation was too weak. Now that his cultivation had reached the Emperor realm, there had been no news from AOD. Qin Yu felt that it was time to go to the ancestral land of the Ghost Clan, the underworld ghost land. Qin Yu had never understood why Fairy Shualan was related to the Ghost Clan. This time, he went there to solve the doubts in his heart. Although the underworld ghost land was located in the heaven domain, strictly speaking, it was not in any part of the 9 states. It was located in a chaotic void area between the heaven domain's barren state and the demon state. The underworld ghost land was in the deepest part of the chaotic void area. Therefore, it had always been called the void ghost domain. There were often cultivators who went to explore the underworld ghost land. But often, cultivators would disappear inexplicably. That kind of disappearance was not death, but simply disappearance. Although their life-blood cards showed that they were still alive, no one could find them if they were alive, and no corpse if they were dead. Because strange things like that often happened. For example, the rumor that the Ghost Clan's inheritance treasure was left there had never stopped. This, on the contrary, attracted more and more cultivators to explore. Half a month later, Qin Yu, who had left the Heavenly Imperial Palace, used the teleportation array of the Heavenly Imperial Palace to come to the barren state. Then, he passed through the barren state and came to the Void Ghost Domain. The Void Ghost Domain was as vast as the starry sky, boundless. The entire void was filled with chaotic and violent void turbulence and eerie ghost chi. The ghost chi was so corrosive that even an Emperor Realm Master could be invaded by it. Qin Yu, who was wearing a bronze mask and whose aura and body shape had changed, quickly shuttled through the chaotic void filled with ghost chi. With the Dragon Soul's space-time divine ability, Qin Yu could be said to be like a fish in water in this chaotic area. They actually followed me here. Qin Yu, who was flying at high speed, had a cold light in his eyes. Qin Yu once again felt that someone was watching him in the dark. The feeling was exactly the same as when he was hunting down the monarchs of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. There are two people following behind, and they are quite far away. After going deeper and deeper into the void ghost prison, the dragon soul finally sensed something. Qin Yu raised his eyebrows slightly, a strange look flashing in his eyes. Right now, his appearance, body shape, and aura had all changed completely. Even Sun Guxing, who was an expert in divination, would find it difficult to see through him. Who was the person who had been spying on him in the dark? What kind of method did it use to lock onto him? How strong are they? Qin Yu asked the dragon soul. The two people who were tailing him were quite good at concealment. Although Qin Yu sensed that someone had been secretly following them, he was unable to perceive their cultivation. Hearing this, the dragon soul immediately used its space-time ability. Strands of space-time energy fused into the chaotic void. They should be top monarchs, and their auras are somewhat familiar. After a while, the dragon soul said with a slightly surprised voice, "Could it be someone I know? Somewhat familiar? It seems that I have to find a chance to catch them." Although countless thoughts flashed through his mind, Qin Yu did not slow down at all. He went all the way into the depths of the void. After staying in a certain region of the void for a long time, Qin Yu completely disappeared. The fluctuation of the ancient heavenly rock's divine power has completely disappeared. What's going on? The two ancient demons who had been following Qin Yu closely by relying on the fluctuations of their ancient divine power had changed their expressions. At this moment, their expressions changed. They could no longer be bothered to conceal their tracks as they quickly tore through the void. They had heard many rumors about the underworld ghost land disappearing inexplicably. At this time, they were a little worried that Qin Yu would also disappear inexplicably. In that case, they really would not be able to get the god-slaying sword and the ancient heavenly rock spirit. Buzz! Buzz! However, just as the two ancient demon clansmen stepped into the region of the void where Qin Yu had stayed and then disappeared, a clear trembling of the formation runes could be heard. This is oh no. It's a trap. The two ancient demons immediately reacted, but it was too late. Almost as soon as they heard the formation runes, a monstrous ancient formation that covered the sky descended. The ancient formation covered the void within a radius of 10,000 miles. Naturally, the two ancient demons were unable to escape and were completely enveloped. He discovered us a long time ago. The two primordial demon clansmen looked solemn. They were still thinking about when to sneak an attack on Qin Yu. They did not expect that Qin Yu had discovered their presence in advance and had set a trap for them to jump into. The fluctuations emitted by the ancient array made their hearts palpitate. This formation seems to be a divine formation from the primordial era, the five gods subduing sky formation. The handsome man in white carefully sized up the ancient formation, and his gaze became increasingly grave. He had seen the five gods subduing sky formation in some ancient books. It was rumored that this ancient formation had a glorious record of killing gods in the primordial era. It went without saying how powerful it was. The chaotic void shook slightly, and a figure appeared. It was Qin Yu. Ancient demons, separated by several tens of feet, Qin Yu was calmly sizing up the two ancient devils. Qin Yu had always suspected that they were the descendants of the generals of the sacrificial evil court or the heavenly emperor palace. He did not expect them to be ancient demons. This was somewhat out of Qin Yu's expectations. However, since the ancient demons had their eyes on him, they must have known him. They must have known his identity and wanted to take back the god-slaying sword. Attack! Seeing that Qin Yu had appeared, the two ancient devil clansmen did not hesitate in the slightest and immediately attacked. The five gods subduing sky formation was extremely powerful. However, that dragon transformation stage clansman was no longer present. Qin Yu was the only one present. 2 against 1, they had the absolute advantage. Swoosh! Immediately, an ancient halberd appeared in the hands of the handsome man in white. The halberd flicked up from below. Billowing demonic chi gathered and rose into the sky like a demonic dragon. With unparalleled demonic chi, the halberd blasted toward Chinyu. The muscular man in black roared, and a demonic curse spread out from his face. As he formed a seal with both hands, the billowing demonic chi swept out like a huge wave. The two attacks seemed to be independent, but they complemented each other and contained extremely terrifying killing intent. Formation rotation. Chinyu, who was well prepared, was not afraid at all. He shouted in a low voice. Within the five gods' subduing sky formation, billowing divine thunder and divine power raged in the sky. The chaotic Tao filled the void. The five divine incantation arrays descended like five gods descending upon a world. Rumble. The two primordial demons and the five sovereigns' cursed subformation clashed in midair. Just the aftermath of the destructive explosion was enough to shatter space itself, causing it to become increasingly chaotic. Chapter 502. As expected of an ancient divine array. Seeing that their attacks were all blocked by the five gods' heaven subduing array, the white-clothed handsome man's eyes became even more serious. No wonder Chinyu, a mere second-grade Emperor Realm Master, dared to set up a trap to lure them in. Swish! Chinyu sneered. With a flip of his right hand, the god-slaying sword appeared in his hand. A murderous intent that could destroy heaven and earth erupted like a storm. If it was the five gods' heaven subduing array at the immortal Phoenix Dream, it would have been difficult to block these two ancient demons. However, in the past few months after returning to the Emperor Palace, Chinyu had specially strengthened the power of the Spirit Array Disc and the five gods' heaven subduing array. Now, the power of this ancient array had increased by more than one level. 9 Serenity's Purgatory. As Chinyu rushed out with the sword in hand, a pitch-black light spread between heaven and earth. The five gods' heaven subduing array immediately turned into a pitch-black space. Ancient space-time killing array. Along with the 9 Serenity's Purgatory was a monstrous murderous intent that could distort space and time. The murderous intent was so strong that it seemed to be able to slaughter the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Bang! The handsome man in white shook his right hand and thrust out his halberd. The vast sea of demon chi rampaged, and the void trembled. The 9 Serenity's Purgatory was wreaked havoc, and the ancient space-time killing array was also shaken off by the billowing demon chi. Chinyu silently slashed out the blood-red sword light, which was accurately shattered into dust by the halberd. Although his perception was stolen, Chinyu's attack was seen through by the handsome man in white. 9 demons kill. At this moment, the muscular man in black used a terrifying secret technique to complement his attack. The vast demon chi turned into 9 ferocious and terrifying hybrid demons that pounced on Chinyu. The 9 ferocious and terrifying hybrid demons seemed to have intelligence as they pounced on him from all directions. The ferocious aura they emitted was also extremely terrifying, enough to severely injure an ordinary peak Emperor Realm Master. Roar! Just as the 9 hybrid demons were about to attack Chinyu, a dragon roar sounded. A heaven-shaking dragon roar appeared, carrying with it a terrifying, bloodthirsty, killing intent. An intense, bloody light flashed through the air, followed by a deafening explosion. The 9 exotic beasts that were attacking Chinyu were directly sent flying. In the void, a ferocious blood dragon that was hundreds of feet long and covered in thorns appeared. It was the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon controlled by the dragon's soul. This time, Chinyu was confident in dealing with 2 top sovereigns. That was because the injuries of the bloodthirsty killing heavenly dragon had already recovered. Chinyu now had the strength of a peak Emperor Realm Master. Bloodthirsty Sky Dragon. When the black-clothed, burly man who used the ancient demon clan's secret technique saw the bloodthirsty, heavenly dragon appear, he could not help but be shocked. What's going on? Isn't Bloodthirsty Sky Dragon the subordinate of the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Clan? The handsome man in white was also shocked when he saw Bloodthirsty Sky Dragon. After the ancient god relic, They returned to the extraterritorial region to investigate the Dragon Clan in the extraterritorial region. Although they did not find out AOD's identity, they had a detailed understanding of the many dragon clans in the extraterritorial region. Dragon Emperor Ao Ba's right-hand man, bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, they naturally knew about him. Is this kid a pawn that the Dragon Emperor placed in the extraterritorial region? The two ancient demon clan members both had the same thought. If that was not the case, why would bloodthirsty heavenly dragon listen to Qin Yu's orders? Roar! A dragon roar filled with bloodthirsty, killing intent resounded. Under the control of the dragon's soul, bloodthirsty heavenly dragon used bloodthirsty hell and rushed out like a bloody flood. Its target was the black-clothed burly man. Swoosh! Qin Yu did not stop at all. His figure flashed across the sky, holding his sword as he attacked the handsome man in white. The five gods' heaven subduing formation moved along with the ancient space-time killing formation. Vast dragon chi and ancient divine power boiled around Qin Yu, wreaking havoc in the world. Just in time, the handsome man in white saw that Qin Yu was facing him alone, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The ancient halberd in his hand trembled, and deep demonic runes surrounded it. Then the handsome man in white, with a monstrous demonic aura, faced Qin Yu head-on. Qin Yu's amplification methods had indeed shocked him. But no matter how many methods he had, Qin Yu's cultivation was only at the second Great Emperor realm. This was an extremely fatal weakness for Qin Yu. Rumble. The two met in an instant, and there was no superfluous display. The bloody sword light and the ancient halberd collided fiercely. The destructive shockwaves of Taoist techniques continued to surge violently, like an erupting tsunami. On the other side, the dragon soul was also fighting with a black-clothed burly man. The two fought crazily in the void, killing each other. Their battle strength was evenly matched, and it seemed like it was difficult to determine the winner. Demon's Seal. At this time, the handsome man in white who blocked Qin Yu's attack. Looking at Qin Yu, who was facing off in close proximity, a sinister sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. The next moment, a cloud of demonic mist condensed behind the handsome man in white. A dazzling demonic light was emitted from the cloud of demonic mist. The demonic light was invisible, and it directly penetrated the Tao technique and ancient divine power, instantly piercing through Qin Yu's body. Qin Yu was shocked. Although he noticed it in time, he was too close and could not avoid the divine light. Then, a scene that shocked Qin Yu even more happened. After the demonic light pierced through his body, it did not cause any injury to him, but it imprisoned the ancient divine power and the azure dragon battle dragon that enhanced his cultivation. Qin Yu's cultivation was restored to the second Great Emperor realm. Although the five gods' heaven subduing array and the ancient space-time killing array were not ineffective, this was enough to cause Qin Yu's strength to plummet greatly. The seven esoteric demons of the ancient demon clan. In Qin Yu's mind, a rumor of the ancient demon clan that he had heard before immediately appeared. It was said that there was a secret technique in the seven esoteric demons of the ancient demon clan. It was a technique that could seal a person's enhancement techniques and restore their cultivation to its original state. Qin Yu had always thought that this was a rumor in his previous life. He did not expect it to be true. Demon Reverse. The handsome man in white immediately seized the opportunity to attack. His long halberd was like a dragon, tearing apart the blood-red sword light of the god slayer and thrusting toward Qin Yu like a bolt of lightning. With a puff, the sound of flesh being pierced was heard, and golden blood poured out into the void. The handsome man in white's long halberd tore through the Tao technique and pierced Qin Yu's left shoulder. An extremely terrifying wave of demonic aura spread out, and Qin Yu's entire left arm exploded. How is this possible? Although Qin Yu's arm was broken, the handsome man in white's face was filled with disbelief. The Demon Reverse was the most powerful secret technique in the seven esoteric demons of the ancient demon clan. As long as one was hit by the demonic aura, their entire body would be torn apart. He had once used this technique to kill a top-notch Emperor Realm Master. Qin Yu, who was only a second-grade Emperor Realm Master, had only lost an arm after taking this technique. Qin Yu's physical strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? Chapter 503. Five Gods Imprisoning the Heavens. Although his left arm was destroyed, Qin Yu's eyes were cold and unmoved. Almost at the same time, the five gods subduing the heavens formation changed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The five gods' curse formation turned into five ancient curse light beams. The handsome man in white, who had destroyed Qin Yu's left arm, was about to retreat when he was surrounded by the cursed light beams. Even though he was trapped by the divine curse light beam, he felt his hair stand on end. Slash. At the same time, white light spots appeared around Qin Yu as he moved his right hand. The God Slayer was like a blood-red sword ray as it slashed towards the handsome man in white. Sky Demon Slaughter. The handsome man in white was trapped by the curse light beams. However, he knew that he couldn't break free, so he used the secret skill of destruction again. Whoosh! From the ancient halberd, a roar that seemed to have come from the primordial times appeared. In the next moment, a primordial sky demon appeared at the tip of the halberd. That immemorial heavenly devil turned into a devil seal, carrying a monstrous devil might. It shot toward Qin Yu like a meteor. Although he felt that the sword light Qin Yu used was dangerous, he was confident. However, the handsome man in white was very confident in his abilities. Qin Yu's body and soul will definitely be destroyed by his attack first. On the other hand, he was trapped by the five gods subduing the heavens formation. However, with the secret skill of the ancient demon clan, he would only be seriously injured if he took Qin Yu's attack. Immortal Stone Emperor Seal. Primordial Sky Rock. Skeleton Ghost King. Qin Yu's eyes were cold. He had no intention of dodging and continued to attack with all his strength. However, the three Emperors' divine light shone brightly on his body and the primordial divine power surged. In an instant, the immortal stone Emperor Seal and the primordial sky rock spirit appeared. At the same time, the skeleton Ghost King, who had condensed a body of flesh and blood, also appeared. The three of them formed a double shield around Qin Yu. Rumble. The blood-red sword light and the ancient demonic seal attacked the two of them. Violent explosions rang out as destructive shockwaves spread out in the void, causing the sky to tremble violently. Countless pitch-black spatial cracks immediately appeared in the already chaotic ghost domain. Even the dragon soul and the black-clothed muscular man, who were fighting in the distance, could not help but look over. Poochie! In that terrifying shockwave, there was a faint sound of flesh being torn apart. The three layers of defense in front of Qin Yu were directly penetrated by the mysterious devil seal. A huge bloody hole appeared in Qin Yu's abdomen. If Qin Yu had not used the space-time ancient slaughtering formation to affect the void, he would not have been able to escape. If that was the case, he would not have been attacked in the abdomen, but in the head. The demon race's secret technique used by the handsome man in white was also unable to defend against Qin Yu's blood-red sword light. Qin Yu's blood-red sword radiance was imbued with unparalleled destructive sword power. It directly shattered his defense. The handsome man in white also used a secret technique to divert his attack. However, under the confinement of the five gods' heaven subduing formation, his ability to divert his attack was very limited, causing his heart to be directly annihilated by the blood-red sword radiance. He can actually exert such terrifying power. Could it be that he can completely control the god-slaying sword? Although the handsome man in white's heart was annihilated, his vitality was extremely strong, so he did not die. He lowered his head and looked at his annihilated heart, a look of horror appearing in his eyes. He had already used a secret technique to restore Qin Yu's cultivation to the second-grade Emperor realm. Even so, his defense was still instantly broken by Qin Yu, and his heart was crushed. If Qin Yu was in his previous state of enhancement, he would probably be completely dead by now. Overestimating yourself. In the distant void, the black-clothed, muscular man. Seeing the injuries of the handsome man in white and Qin Yu, a ferocious look appeared on his face. The outcome has been decided. Little did he know that the dragon soul, who was controlling the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon, had a cold smile on its young face. It ends here. The white-robed handsome man's eyes were filled with shock and lingering fear. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, without the slightest hesitation, he immediately activated his next move. Chi. Qin Yu's abdomen, which had been pierced by the mysterious demon seal, was filled with demon qi. It madly surged into Qin Yu's body, constantly destroying Qin Yu's flesh and blood. That terrifying power far surpassed the inverse demon style from before. Even with the strength of the dragon god tyrant body, it was difficult to resist. Seeing this, the handsome man in white couldn't help but reveal a sneer on his face. The heavenly demon's slaughter contained the inextinguishable killing intent of the immemorial heavenly demon. Once hit by the heavenly demon's slaughter, it was basically certain death. It's indeed time to end this. Qin Yu looked at his abdomen, which was getting more and more injured, and suddenly changed his hands. Immediately, he saw the handsome man in white's heart. Specks of white light silently appeared and spread in all directions. How could the handsome man in white, who had a cold smile on his face, suddenly froze? He lowered his head again and looked at his heart. As the white light spread, his flesh and blood disappeared inch by inch. It was completely unstoppable. Qin Yu's eyes were cold and indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation. The immortal sacrifice forbidden technique was his biggest trump card, other than the god punishment formation. The handsome man in white thought that he could resist it with the demon race's secret technique. But he did not know that the moment he was attacked, he was already in a situation where he would undoubtedly die. Under normal circumstances, he might still be able to release his emperor's soul. But in this situation, he could only wait for death. On the other hand, Qin Yu's heavenly demon-killing intent, which was wreaking havoc in his body, was completely suppressed by the immortal suppression technique. It was completely suppressed by the painting of divine extermination. Even its killing intent was absorbed by the god-slaying formation. Vast dragon qi surged out of the dragon god ancient seal, and countless wisps of blood-colored mist gathered in the void. Immediately, Qin Yu's pierced abdomen and destroyed left arm were rapidly healing and regenerating at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was the dragon qi secret technique, flesh rebirth, and the bloodthirsty killing hell of the heavenly dragon. Damn it! The burly man in black, who originally had a ferocious expression, was stunned for a moment before he immediately reacted. He roared at the sky, and the demon spell on his body exploded. His body crazily expanded to a size of 5 feet. Like an ancient giant, his demonic might shook the sky. "I've been waiting for you." Seeing the burly man in black pouncing over, Qin Yu's lips curled into a sneer. Space-time divine ability. The dragon soul inside the bloodthirsty killing heavenly dragon sneered even more. Space-splitting chaotic flow kill. As the dragon's soul formed a seal and shouted, a vast space-time power that could be clearly sensed erupted. In this void that had countless pitch-black cracks, a violent space-time turbulence appeared like a wave. Like hundreds of millions of blades, with the burly man in black as the center, it gathered with a loud bang. In an instant, it turned into an incomparably terrifying space-time turbulence vortex. The scale of this chaotic void power far exceeded that of the chaotic power in the ancient god ruins. This situation was naturally deliberately caused by Qin Yu and the dragon soul. The more chaotic and terrifying the space-time power was, the stronger the power that the dragon soul could borrow. Therefore, when they were dealing with the two ancient demons, they had already prepared for this scene. Chapter 504. 5 Gods Killing the Heavens. At this moment, Qin Yu attacked with lightning speed. A destructive killing intent soared into the sky and merged with the 5 gods' heaven subduing formation. Immediately, the The five gods' heaven subduing formation blasted into the chaotic space vortex with the destructive power of the formation. Rumble, accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, a huge pitch-black hole appeared in the void. The muscular man in black, who seemed to have transformed into an ancient giant, had disappeared without a trace. The handsome man in white, who was attacked by the immortal sacrifice forbidden technique, also disappeared along with the white light. His body was completely shattered, and his soul scattered. At the beginning of the battle, Qin Yu had wanted to capture the two ancient demons alive. He wanted to see if he could obtain the specific plans of the ancient demons and the extraterritorial demons. After all, the two of them had a high status in the extraterritorial demon race. However, the methods of these two ancient devil clans had caused Qin Yu to give up on this idea. In this battle, not only had he lost an arm, but his abdomen had also been pierced. Since the battle at the Water Immortal Sacred Land in the Heavenly Dragon Continent, Qin Yu had suffered such a serious injury. The ancient demons were indeed a race that had once tried to dominate the entire heavenly domain. Even Qin Yu was a bit apprehensive of the secret techniques that they had grasped. If they were just ordinary peak sovereigns at their peak, Qin Yu would definitely not have suffered such a serious injury in such a situation where he had the upper hand and the geographical advantage. Therefore, even though Qin Yu knew that this was an excellent opportunity to capture the ancient demons, he still chose to do it. But he still decided to kill them. At this time, it was better to act cautiously to avoid any more accidents. Let's go. He sensed several auras quietly approaching. Without hesitation, Qin Yu immediately put away the dragon soul and quickly flew out of this area filled with countless cracks. Half a day later, Qin Yu hid somewhere in the Void Ghost prison and was recovering from his injuries. Although his left arm and abdomen had been regenerated with a secret technique, his internal injuries had not recovered so quickly. Qin Yu is currently purifying the demonic energy in his body. This was also one of the reasons why Qin Yu hadn't tried to capture the two ancient demons alive. After another 4 hours, the demon Qi in Qin Yu's body was completely purified, and he returned to his peak condition. Qin Yu rose to his feet, broke through the void, and entered the depths of the Void Ghost realm. 14 hours later, Qin Yu finally arrived at the Ghost Clan's ancestral land, the Ghost Underworld. The Underworld Ghost Land was a huge continent, but it was not an ordinary continent. It was unknown what had happened to this continent, but it had already become fragmented. Countless pieces of broken land floated in the gloomy, oppressive void of heaven and earth, which was filled with a strong, eerie, ghostly aura. Some of the broken pieces of land were only a few hundred feet wide, while others were hundreds of miles wide. On the larger pieces of land, there were also some collapsed buildings. If one were to look into the distance, one could vaguely make out the silhouettes of people in some of the buildings on the ground. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After looking around, Qin Yu took out the underworld stone left behind by Fairy Shulon. The underworld stone, which had not fluctuated in the slightest all this time, seemed to be affected by the demonic energy of the underworld ghost land. It started to tremble slightly, and mysterious ancient ghost runes started to appear around it. A terrifying demonic energy was emitted from the underworld stone. Qin Yu could clearly feel that somewhere in the west of the underworld ghost land, there was a strong fluctuation which was faintly resonating with the underworld stone in his hand. Just as Qin Yu was about to move, his expression suddenly changed. Someone is approaching, with killing intent. In the divine dragon ancient seal, the dragon soul also instantly sensed it and directly escaped into the body of the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon. Xiao xiao xiao. With the sound of breaking through the air, more than a dozen figures broke through the void at an extremely fast speed. Those people were all Emperor Realm Masters, but they appeared from all directions. Obviously, these emperors were not all in the same group, but their target was clearly Qin Yu. Are they here for this underworld stone? Qin Yu swept his gaze over the Emperor Realm Masters who had gathered. He noticed that these emperors were all staring at the underworld stone in his hand with fiery eyes. There was a strong greed in their fiery eyes. Is there anything special about this underworld stone? The dragon soul also noticed this scene and could not help but ask Chinyu. Although it is a little different from ordinary underworld stones, I can't see anything strange about it. Although Chinyu had been to the underworld ghost land in his previous life, but he only knew that the underworld stone was a rare spirit material. However, the situation in front of him was enough to explain it. The underworld stone in his hand was definitely strange, and it was even strange that everyone knew. It seemed that in the thousands of years since his death, the Heaven Domain cultivator's exploration of the underworld ghost land had reached a very deep level. It really is the Ghost King Stone. A mere second-grade Emperor Realm Master actually dares to sacrifice the Ghost King Stone so openly? I'm afraid this person has a great background. This is the underworld ghost land. Even if he has some status, it's useless here. Those Emperor Realm Masters who knew each other were chatting with each other. The weakest among them was a fourth-grade Emperor Realm Master. Naturally, they were not afraid of Chinyu, a mere second-grade Emperor Realm Master. What they were really worried about were the other Emperor Realm Masters around them. Therefore, no one wanted to make the first move in case they were ambushed. If you still appear in my sight within 10 breaths, prepare to die. When those Emperor Realm Masters were worried about each other and did not make a move, Chinyu spoke first. Among these dozen or so Emperor Realm Masters, the strongest was only a 6th-grade Emperor Realm Master. For the current Chinyu, they were no threat at all. Chinyu's words made the expressions of the dozen or so sovereigns turn strange. They had used a secret technique to detect Chinyu's cultivation, and Chinyu was indeed only a 2nd-grade Emperor Realm Master. A 2nd-grade Emperor Realm Master dared to threaten them in the face of so many Emperor Realm Masters whose cultivation was far higher than his? A reckless guy. Let me, heaven-battling Emperor Realm Master, send you on your way. A cold voice sounded. An extremely tyrannical, baleful aura, covering the sky and covering the earth, rushed toward Chinyu. A fierce-looking man with hazy eyes appeared. It's the Union Master of Heaven Battling Union. The fierce-looking man seemed to be quite famous in the Emperor Realm. When the surrounding dozen or so Emperor Realm Masters saw him, their expressions changed. Heaven Battling Emperor Realm Master? Chinyu looked at the fierce-looking man calmly. Even in the Emperor Realm, not all Emperor Realm Masters were qualified to be Emperor Realm Masters. At the very least, one needed to have a top-notch cultivation and be qualified to be granted a title. If one wanted to reach the Central Continent Emperor Realm with an Emperor Realm Master title, one needed to be a Saint Emperor Realm Master. Of course, if one's battle record was amazing enough, one could also enter the Emperor list in advance. In Chinyu's previous life, he and Xing Luo had entered the Emperor list when they were only top-notch emperors. Although the fierce-looking man in front of him had a resounding Emperor Realm Master title, his cultivation was only at the peak of the 6th grade. With such a cultivation, he dared to give himself an Emperor Realm Master title. He was simply overestimating himself. Chapter 505. Die. Seeing the contempt in Chinyu's eyes, the ferocious man's eyes darkened. He punched out in the air. A several dozen zhonglong fist of light condensed. With a terrifying oppressive sound, it pressed down on Chinyu. Azure Dragon battles the heavens. Heaven swallowing dragon seal. Rolling dragon chi surged. Chinyu did not waste any time and directly struck out with his palm. 100-meter-long ferocious dragon seal appeared, like the birth of a ferocious dragon. The ferocious man who called himself the Heaven Fighting Emperor Senior did not react. He was swallowed by the heaven-swallowing dragon seal, along with his fist aura. How is this possible? Oh no, even if this person is not a top Emperor Master, he is definitely a high-level Emperor Master. The surrounding Emperor Realm Masters came back to their senses after a moment of extreme shock. To suppress a peak 6th grade Emperor Master with one move, he must be at least a high-level Emperor Master. Just as the venerable sovereigns were about to flee, a pitch-black light filled the sky. It was the 9 Serenity's Purgatory. Swish! At this moment, the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon and the skeleton ghost king appeared and rushed into the purgatory space. Thus, a massacre began. With the cultivation of the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon and the skeleton ghost king, they could completely suppress them in the 9 serenities purgatory. Chinyu did not join the battle. He took out the emperor's soul of the ferocious man suppressed in the heaven-swallowing dragon seal. After soul searching and soul refining, Chinyu soon learned why these people were eyeing the dark stone in his hand. Hundreds of years ago, an extremely rare divine stone appeared in the dark ghost land. It was called the Ghost King Stone. It was rumored that the Ghost King Stone was refined by the former Ghost King using the Ghost Clan's secret technique. The Ghost King Stone was no different from other dark stones in terms of use. However, the Ghost King Stone was discovered to be able to communicate with the Ghost Clan's sealed lands. In other words, it could enter the sealed lands left behind by the Ghost Clan. Moreover, there were real cultivators who entered the sealed lands of the Ghost Clan and obtained heaven-defying opportunities. When this news spread, it set off a craze for the Ghost King Stone. Countless cultivators flocked to the Ghost King Stone. This phenomenon lasted for over 100 years before it gradually faded away. This was because the Ghost King Stone was too rare and its appearance was irregular. Sometimes a Ghost King Stone would not appear for decades. Therefore, when the fluctuations from the Ghost King Stone in Chinyu's hand spread out, the surrounding Emperor Realm Masters immediately gathered. The Ghost Clan's secret realm? Could it be that Fairy Shualon is really related to the Ghost Clan? Chinyu devoured the sovereign spirit of the fiendish man, and his eyes flickered slightly. Fairy Shualon's origins had always been a mystery. This time, he might be able to unveil Fairy Shualon's mysterious veil. Of course, to Chinyu, the most important thing was to find out where Fairy Shualon was and whether she was all right. Soon, the battle between the Dragon's Soul and the Skeleton Ghost King ended. The Dragon's Soul controlled the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon to return to the ancient dragon god seal. The Skeleton Ghost King was madly devouring the vitality of the Emperor Realm Masters. During the battle with the 2 ancient demons, the Skeleton Ghost King had suffered heavy injuries and was taking the opportunity to recover. After the Skeleton Ghost King finished devouring the vitality, Chinyu put away the Sumeru rings of the Emperor Realm Masters and quickly flew towards the west of the Ghost Clan land. The deeper he went into the Ghost King land, the stronger the fluctuations from the Ghost King Stone became. Half a day later, Chinyu appeared on a piece of broken land that was only a few dozen meters wide. On that piece of land, there was an ancient ghost rune altar that had already collapsed. The strong fluctuations that resonated with the Ghost King Stone came from this Ghost King altar. Xiao, arriving in front of the Ghost Rune altar, the Ghost King Stone immediately floated up and merged with the Ghost Rune altar. Wong Wong. Immediately, the Ghost Rune altar trembled slightly, and an extremely ancient and mysterious aura spread out. This aura was so ancient that it seemed to be much older than the ancient era. This is in the ancient dragon god seal. The dragon soul's eyes suddenly flashed. Fairy Shualon's Tao fluctuations. Chinyu's gaze focused as he stared at the ancient altar. The Ghost Rune altar emitted an ancient aura that contained Fairy Shualon's Tao fluctuations. However, compared to his previous life, Fairy Shualon's Tao seemed to have clearly changed. It seemed to have undergone some kind of transformation, or as if some kind of seal had been removed. It was no longer the pure power of Tao, as if it had jumped out of the framework of Tao. Had she already crossed the 9th stage of a martial Tao? Shua! Just as Chinyu was thinking, a strong suction force came from the Ghost Rune altar. Chinyu had just reacted when he was sucked into the Ghost Rune altar. The moment Chinyu entered the Ghost Rune altar, he seemed to have entered a transmission channel. Countless white beams of light flew past him, but it was different from an ordinary transmission. Chinyu was able to clearly sense that the current him was merely a strand of soul. And this kind of transmission didn't seem like a transmission between realms, but more like traveling through space. In this transmission, where he couldn't feel the passage of time, he didn't know how long had passed. Qin Yu felt that the world in front of him had suddenly become bright and dazzling. When he opened his eyes again, a strange world appeared in front of him. At a glance, it was a world of ice and snow. Snowstorms howled in the void, destroying the heavens and the earth. What a terrifying pressure! The moment he arrived in this strange world, Qin Yu felt a pressure that made it difficult for him to breathe. That pressure was like the power of heaven and earth pressing down on him, making him unable to bear it. Although he was now just a wisp of soul, Qin Yu had a feeling. Even if his main body came, he definitely wouldn't be able to bear this pressure. This was definitely not a pressure that could be found in the heaven domain. This aura, but at this moment, Qin Yu seemed to have sensed something and suddenly lowered his head. He saw countless ice castles formed from ice and snow floating in the void. Although there were a lot of castles of ice and snow, Qin Yu's gaze was suddenly focused on a figure outside of those castles of ice and snow. Fairy Xiaolan. Qin Yu was stunned. It was a woman in snow-white clothes with an ancient sword on her back. Although she had changed a lot from her previous life, when she was dressed in purple all year round. But Qin Yu still recognized her in an instant. That white-clothed woman was Fairy Xiaolan. At this moment, as if she had sensed something, the white-clothed woman slowly raised her head. An exquisite and beautiful face that he had missed countless times appeared in front of Qin Yu's eyes. When the white-clothed Fairy Xiaolan saw Qin Yu's soul appear, her body suddenly froze. In those cold eyes that were originally filled with killing intent, a glint that Qin Yu was familiar with appeared. It was as clear as a gem. Can I already go to the ghost underworld land? Although she was able to sense Qin Yu's soul, Fairy Xiaolan knew that Qin Yu's soul was in a different place. Qin Yu hadn't come to this world. Now, they were looking at each other across endless time and space. Boom. Suddenly, a shocking explosion sounded, and an incomparably terrifying pressure came like a tsunami. Before Qin Yu could react, that strand of soul was directly crushed to pieces. Chapter 506. Seeing Qin Yu's soul disappear, Fairy Xiaolan was startled. Then, her eyes, which had become clear like gemstones, became cold and indifferent. There was no fluctuation, only endless murderous intent. At this moment, the floating ice castles were filled with countless ice and snow runes. They were like awakened world-destroying beasts, exuding an incomparably terrifying aura. That might was so frightening that it caused the entire area to violently tremble. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Figures in blood-red robes flew through the air from those ice castles. Evil creature, you dare to come back? When they saw that the intruder was Fairy Xiaolan, they all had different expressions on their faces. The white-haired man in the lead had a strong, murderous intent in his eyes. My mother's corpse is not in the ancestral land. Where did you bury her? Fairy Xiaolan's voice was as cold as ice. Buried? Do you think that bitch can be safely buried in the ancestral land after helping you escape? If you want to find her, go to the Ghost Demon Burial Ridge. If you're lucky, you might find some broken limbs. The white-haired man's voice was cold. Ghost Demon Burial Ridge? Xiaolan's hands suddenly clenched into fists. You deserve to die. Everyone behind you deserves to die. Xiaolan's eyes were filled with murderous intent as she stared at the white-haired man. Evil creature, it seems that you found out a lot. Since that's the case, I can't let you go. The white-haired man's expression became ferocious when he heard this. With a wave of his hand, a 10,000-mile blizzard appeared in the void. It swept through and destroyed everything. In an instant, Xiaolan was engulfed by the destructive blizzard. Whoosh! However, a dazzling cold light flashed through the void. The destructive snowstorm that had engulfed thousands of miles was directly severed by the sword. Holding the ancient sword in her hand, Fairy Xiaolan stepped out of the snowstorm in the air. Step by step, she walked toward the white-haired man and the others. Ow! The white-haired man's eyelids twitched in disbelief. His attack was actually cut in half by a sword. The other Shui clan martial artists were also shocked. Xiaolan, who had escaped because she had been chosen as a sacrifice, had actually undergone such a drastic change in her strength. What had she been through all these years? Let's go together and capture her. The white-haired man came back to his senses, and his expression became even more ferocious. As soon as he gave the order, the members of the Snow Clan immediately charged forward. Not only that, but several long and drawn-out drum beats spread throughout all the snow castles. Countless figures with terrifying auras soared into the sky and gathered there. Chi! Chi! Fairy Shualon held a long sword in her hand as she soared through the air. All of the incoming attacks were destroyed with a single strike of her sword. All of the attacking martial artists were also killed with a single slash. Wherever Fairy Shualon passed, all the martial artists who stood in her way were instantly killed by her sword. No one could stop her. The pungent smell of blood permeated this world that was ravaged by wind and snow. The white-haired man looked at Fairy Shualon, who was like a god of death. He was completely frozen in the air, and his eyes were completely blank, blizzard style, as more and more Shui clan martial artists came from all directions, and they were all attacking from afar. Fairy Shualon's attack changed. She slashed with her ancient sword, and a snowstorm of sword light wreaked havoc in a radius of 10,000 miles. When the snowstorm of sword light dissipated, the Shui clan martial artists that had gathered were all smashed to pieces. One strike had killed over 10,000 Shui clan martial artists. Ancestor, please show yourself. The white-haired man, who had been retreating, was also affected. He spat out blood and flew back with heavy injuries. When he saw Fairy Shualon walk closer and closer to him, his face turned pale. Cold sweat broke out on his pale face as he immediately shouted. The other Shui clan martial artists immediately used their strongest trump card. A 1,000-foot-tall giant that looked like it was formed by wind and snow descended with a terrifying aura that could suppress the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Inverse immortal style. Fairy Shualon didn't dodge at all. She faced it head-on. An earth-shattering battle erupted, and countless snow castles were destroyed. The battle lasted for a full day and night before it finally came to an end. On this day, the abandoned daughter of the Shui clan returned alone. She slaughtered her way into the Shui clan with a sword, and blood dyed the sky red. Since then, the Shui clan had changed hands. The abandoned daughter of the Shui clan became the empress, and she unified the entire Shui region. Those who didn't surrender were killed. Xian region, underworld ghost land. The moment his soul was annihilated by the pressure, Qin Yu's main body suddenly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he found himself on top of the ghost-strewn altar. However, the land they were in wasn't that broken land. Instead, he was in a barren land filled with dense ghost qi. In the void, there was a creepy wailing sound that sounded like the wailing of a ghost. Needless to say, this place filled with ghost qi should be the legendary Ghost Clan Mystic Realm. However, Qin Yu's mind wasn't on this mystic realm at all. His mind was filled with Fairy Shualon's appearance. What happened? Qin Yu and Fairy Shualon hadn't seen each other for thousands of years. Back then, in the Tianlong continent, he had only seen the afterimage left behind by Fairy Shualon. Compared to 1,000 years ago, Fairy Shualon's entire person had changed. The most obvious change was naturally her bone-chilling eyes and her extremely murderous aura. The coldness in her eyes made Qin Yu's heart tremble. When Fairy Shualon left the Xian region, she must have encountered some serious changes. Otherwise, she wouldn't have changed so much. And thinking of the scene of Fairy Shualon standing alone in front of the ice castle, Qin Yu couldn't help but worry. That ice world, what kind of place is it? In the dragon god Ancient Seal, the dragon soul asked in confusion after seeing Qin Yu's memories. Qin Yu's current cultivation was indeed far from his peak, but the Emperor's soul had indeed recovered. Even though this was the case, Qin Yu's Emperor's soul was still directly annihilated by that oppressive might. In the Xian region, the dragon soul couldn't think of any place that could have such a terrifying pressure. That is not the Xian region. Qin Yu was very sure of this. The pressure of that ice world was definitely not the power of the Xian region's Tao. Immortal seeking ancient road. Actually, The dragon soul also knew that that ice world was most likely not the Xian region. The most likely place was naturally the immortal-seeking ancient road. Qin Yu hadn't set foot on the immortal-seeking ancient road in his previous life. There were all kinds of rumors about the immortal-seeking ancient road. As for the specific situation, they were completely unaware. The only person Qin Yu was familiar with was his big senior brother, Lin Chongqing, who had set foot on the immortal-seeking ancient road. But he had only set foot on the immortal-seeking ancient road before returning with serious injuries. Now, his big senior brother should still be recovering his cultivation in the ancient imperial palace. There was another person who might know about the immortal-seeking ancient road, and that was Buried Heaven Sword Immortal. However, Qin Yu and Buried Heaven Sword Immortal didn't have much interaction, so their relationship couldn't be considered that close. Qin Yu also couldn't expose his identity and ask Buried Heaven Sword Immortal for information about the immortal-seeking ancient road. All right, Qin Yu, who was originally deep in thought, suddenly thought of the Ghost King Stone. Since Fairy Shualan had left the Ghost King Stone behind and asked him to come to the Ghost Underworld, perhaps there would be some clues left behind. Chapter 507. Thinking of this, Qin Yu channeled all of his battle dragon True Yuan and Dao power into the Ghost King Stone. As expected, the Ghost King Stone trembled again, and a faint fluctuation appeared. Qin Yu held the Ghost King Stone in his hand and immediately rushed into the depths of the secret realm. Kiki! But halfway there, the ghost cry that echoed in the void seemed to become clearer. Qin Yu's eyebrows twitched, and he slowed down a little as he spread out his senses. But this secret realm was shrouded in dense ghost chi. Whether it was his sight or his senses, he could find where the ghost cry was coming from. Something's wrong. Even the Dragon Soul's space-time ability was greatly suppressed in this ghost clan's secret realm. Although it was not as good as the Deity Phoenix Divine Palace in the Deity Phoenix Valley, it was still at a level where he could not sense it clearly. After Qin Yu continued to fly for a period of time, he stopped. After entering this place, Qin Yu could clearly sense it. There was something in this ghost clan's secret realm that had its eyes on him. His eyes flashed, and Qin Yu's heart moved. The ghost Eye of Annihilation flew out from the skeleton Ghost King and appeared in his eyes. After the ghost Eye of Annihilation appeared, it could not help but tremble, and ghost runes appeared. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately, the vast ghost chi in this ghost clan's secret realm rushed toward the ghost Eye of Annihilation. In an instant, an extremely huge ghost chi vortex formed and appeared. As the ghost chi devoured, the ghost Eye of Annihilation's aura became more and more terrifying. Ever since Qin Yu came to the heavenly region, the ghost Eye of Annihilation had not been used much. As for the reason, it was because Qin Yu's opponents were too strong. With the current ghost Eye of Annihilation, it could only help the skeleton Ghost King. But this did not mean that the skeleton Ghost King was useless. One had to know that the ghost Eye of Annihilation was a supreme secret technique of the Ghost Clan. The Ghost Clan's experts had once cultivated this technique, and it could break tens of thousands of spells and seal tens of thousands of spirits. Qin Yu's ghost Eye of Annihilation had been sealed before, and its potential was far from being untapped. The dense, ghostly chi in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm was a great opportunity for the Ghost Eye of Extermination. In the current Heaven Domain, it would be difficult to find a second place with such dense ghost chi. After the Ghost Eyes of Annihilation appeared, Qin Yu also found the ghost hidden in the dense ghost chi. It was a ghostly being that was half a meter tall. It was humanoid in shape and only had half a face. It looked extremely ferocious. Wraith Ghost. Qin Yu recognized the ghost when he saw the half of its face glaring at him with an extremely venomous gaze. He thought that it was left behind by a Ghost Clan expert, but it seemed like he was thinking too much. Wraiths and ghosts were formed by combining the resentment of living beings with ghostly energy. They were formless and intangible. It could control people's resentment and silently devour people's souls. Of course, in Qin Yu's eyes, vengeful spirits and ghosts could only be considered ordinary ghosts. Whoosh! Since he had found the main body, it would be much easier to deal with it. Chinyu suddenly tilted his head and his eyes flashed. The ghost eyes of annihilation, which were devouring ghostly energy, closed, and a mysterious light pierced through the void. The wraith ghost seemed to have sensed danger and immediately hid away. But it was still half a beat too late and was pierced through by the light of the ghost eyes. The destructive power of the ghost eyes of annihilation was fully displayed at this moment. The wraith ghost was torn to pieces the moment it was attacked by the light of the ghost eyes. Chinyu didn't hesitate and went deeper into the mystic realm. As Chinyu moved, the ghostly chi in the mystic realm was attracted. In this mystic realm, countless mysterious and powerful ghosts all sensed it. This aura, ghost ancestors' divine eye. At this moment, in the depths of the mystic realm, there was a half-collapsed pitch-black bone palace. In the palace, a ghost general wearing armor and holding a halberd suddenly opened his eyes. The light of the ghost general's eyes was so real that even the void seemed to be torn apart. He stood up, and an incomparably heavy aura accompanied him, suppressing the sky. As the heavy sound of the armor resounded, the armored general disappeared without a trace. At this time, Chinyu, who was going deeper into the mystic realm, encountered several terrifying ghosts. As the ghost eyes of annihilation absorbed more and more ghostly energy, its power became even more powerful. Those ghosts that appeared were basically annihilated in an instant under the ghost eyes of annihilation. Only ghosts that could avoid the attack of the ghost eyes of annihilation appeared. Chinyu didn't chase after them and went deeper into the mystic realm. Not long after, following the fluctuations of the Ghost King's Stone, Chinyu arrived in front of an endless cliff. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a vast sea of ghostly energy, surging and bowing violently with an astonishing momentum. At the bottom of this cliff, Chinyu lowered his head and looked at the bottom of the cliff. There seems to be countless ghosts hiding at the bottom. The dragon's soul sensed with all its might and found that the aura of many ghosts was extremely chaotic. It even made the dragon's soul feel extremely fearful. Plop! Chinyu also sensed something. However, he didn't hesitate at all. He jumped and plunged into the billowing, ghostly energy at the bottom of the cliff. Woo-woo! Kiki! Kiki! As soon as he entered the ghostly energy, countless ghosts cried. It was as if he had entered an endless hell. It was extremely ear-piercing. The ghost eyes of annihilation, which had already gained sentience, seemed to be even more excited. The speed at which it absorbed the ghostly energy became faster and faster. The ancient ghostly runes that appeared became clearer and clearer. The Ghost King's Stone in Chinyu's hand also emitted an extremely strong fluctuation of perception. Whoosh! Whoosh! Not long after he rushed in, Chinyu received a sneak attack from the three-headed evil ghost. Although they weren't pure ghosts, their combat strength was close to that of a high-level sovereign. Even the ghost eyes of annihilation could only suppress their cultivation. It couldn't kill or imprison them. Chinyu directly entered the state of the Azure Dragon battling the heavens and forcibly killed those three evil spirits. After the three ghosts were killed, a wisp of extremely pure ghostly fog appeared. With a sweep of the ghost eyes of annihilation, the ghostly fog was immediately absorbed. The ghost eyes of annihilation trembled continuously, and the aura it emitted was obviously much stronger. This discovery made Chinyu a little concerned. It seemed that the ghostly fog in these ghosts was greatly beneficial to the ghost eyes of annihilation. The benefits were far greater than the boundless ghost chi. Chinyu continued to go deeper. Along the way, he encountered more and more ghosts. Chinyu sensed them with the ghost eyes of annihilation and killed them with lightning speed. The more ghostly fog it absorbed from the sovereign ghosts, the more terrifying the aura of the ghost eyes of annihilation became. After reaching the bottom of the cliff, Chinyu was already surrounded by several tens of thousands of evil spirits. However, Chinyu didn't care much. His gaze was fixed on an area of ice and snow at the bottom of the cliff. The area of ice and snow wasn't very big. It was only 10 feet wide. However, in the surging, ghostly energy, the pitch-black cliff was extremely dazzling. In the middle of the area of ice and snow floated an ancient divine seal. Qin Yu's eyes lit up. The snow fairy mark? Qin Yu had seen the ancient divine seal in the blood mist devil stream in the heavenly dragon continent. Chapter 508. Back at the blood mist devil stream, Fairy Shualon had also left behind an identical imprint. Back then, after Qin Yu crushed the snow fairy imprint, Fairy Shualon seemed to be able to know whether he was alive or not through the snow fairy imprint. However, the snow fairy imprint back then was not real and could be easily crushed. However, the snow immortal imprint before Qin Yu's eyes was a genuine existence. This pressure, after sensing it slightly, Qin Yu's eyes flashed with surprise. The pressure emitted by the snow fairy imprint. It was almost the same as the pressure from the world of ice and snow that Qin Yu had been to before. It was very likely that the snow fairy imprint contained clues related to that world of ice and snow. This should also be the reason why Fairy Shualon had left behind the snow fairy imprint. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As if sensing Qin Yu's arrival, the snow fairy imprint trembled slightly. Whoosh! The Ghost King stone in Qin Yu's hand flew out uncontrollably and merged with the snow fairy imprint. Immediately, the boundary around the ice and snow area quickly disappeared. A ray of snowy light flashed through the air, and the snow fairy imprint flew directly in front of Qin Yu. Seeing this, Qin Yu grasped the snow fairy imprint, but did not discover anything special. Woo woo woo. At this moment, the thousands of evil spirits that surrounded Qin Yu, seeing the snow fairy imprint come out of the ice and snow boundary, they immediately went into a riot. Destructive, ghostly power exploded, surging violently. In an instant, Qin Yu was in danger of dying. Azure Dragon battling the heavens. Immortal Stone Emperor Seal. Qin Yu's cold gaze swept across, and the Azure Dragon battling the heavens was fully unleashed. Its aura soared, and its power shook the sky. Heaven's War Emperor Transformation. Immediately, a pitch-black ancient banner appeared in his hand, and Qin Yu immediately charged forward. Rumble. An earth-shattering battle erupted at the bottom of the Ghost Chi Cliff. Tyrannical Dao techniques, shocking dragon might, and destructive ghostly power crazily clashed. Layers of chaotic shockwaves appeared in the void and swept out in all directions. Qin Yu unleashed his divine abilities and secret techniques, killing one ghostly being after another. Wisp after wisp of ghostly mist was devoured by the ghost eye of annihilation. While Qin Yu was fighting, the dragon's soul's eyes flickered. He could feel a very strong ghost chi pressure approaching at an extremely fast speed. Peak Emperor Realm Master, at the very least. The dragon's soul immediately emerged from the ancient seal of the divine dragon. Qin Yu still felt a certain amount of pressure when dealing with a Peak Emperor Master. Qin Yu understood. With a thought, the array flags on the spirit formation plate fell into the dragon's soul's hand. Space-time ripples spread out, and the dragon's soul instantly disappeared into the void. Death God's Ancient Banner. Shattered Soul. At this moment, Qin Yu also activated the ancient godly weapon in his hand with all his might. Then, a series of ghostly cries could be heard. Mysterious ghostly runes started to appear from the Death God's ancient banner. It was as if 10,000 arrows had been fired at the same time, shooting out in all directions. Bang! Bang! Under the full force of the attack, the ghostly runes gathered and attacked Qin Yu frantically. The malicious ghosts that wanted to snatch the snow fairy mark were annihilated by the ancient ghostly runes. Although the Death God's ancient banner was an ancient godly weapon, it had been created in ancient times. It was a godly weapon forged by the evil god of death. It was far better than other ancient godly weapons in dealing with Ghost Dao and Soul Dao. Originally, this godly weapon was obtained by Emperor 10,000 Spirits, who was proficient in Soul Dao. Later, Emperor 10,000 Spirits tried to steal the dragon's soul and was killed by Chinyu. A battle between divine emperors was not something that ordinary emperors could compare to. The Death God's ancient banner was completely destroyed in the battle back then. In the blink of an eye, the malicious ghosts and evil spirits that had surrounded and attacked wildly were all killed. While the ghost eye of annihilation devoured the ghostly mist, Chinyu tilted his head and looked toward the southeast. The dragon's soul sensed that the terrifying pressure was coming from that direction. Whoosh! Soon, a ghastly ghostly aura that made people feel cold all over attacked. An extremely powerful ghost general appeared. This is the pressure of the ghost clan. Qin Yu's eyes narrowed as he looked at the armored ghost general that had appeared. He had killed countless malicious ghosts and evil spirits along the way, but none of them were from the ghost clan. But now, this ghastly, ghostly aura was different. This was not a malicious ghost or evil spirit, but a real ghost clan. Strange. The dragon soul that had returned to the divine dragon ancient seal to control the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon after setting up the five gods' heaven subduing array. As if he had discovered something, he muttered to himself in a strange manner. He sensed a familiar fluctuation from this ghastly, ghostly aura. It seems that the inheritance of the Ghost Emperor Holy Island is indeed related to the Ghost Clan. Qin also sensed something. It was the first time that Qin had seen a real Ghost Clan. Even in his previous life, Qin had only sensed the aura left behind by the Ghost Clan. The ghostly aura fluctuation of the armored ghost general in front of him was similar to the ghostly aura fluctuation of the people from the Ghost Emperor Holy Island. Although they were different, they had the same effect. It really is the ghost ancestor's divine eye. After the armored ghost general arrived, he immediately saw the ghost eye of extermination in Qin Yu's eyes. Under the heavy helmet, there was a strong fluctuation of emotion in his grayish-brown eyes. He seemed to be extremely excited. Sensing the appearance of the armored ghost general, the ghost eye of extermination also trembled. He could clearly sense the ghost chi contained within the ghost eyes of extermination against the armored ghost general. He was quite excited, as if he had encountered a powerful opportunity. Boom! Qin Yu sensed the change in the ghost eye of extermination's emotions. Without wasting any time, he immediately activated the five gods' heaven subduing array. Immediately, the bottom of the cliff seemed to have an earthquake. The ground cracked inch by inch, and the void shook violently. An ancient formation that covered the sky appeared and sealed the armored ghost general within it. Roar! The dragon's soul controlled the bloodthirsty heavenly dragon to appear, and a vast dragon's aura swept across the land. Destroy! Qin Yu rushed out with the death god's ancient banner in his hand. Vast ancient divine power exploded, and his power became even more terrifying. Dragon Clan's divine power? Ancient divine power? The armored ghost general's eyes flashed with intense shock, and he instinctively wanted to escape. He could tell at a glance that Qin Yu was using the Dragon Clan's divine power and ancient divine power. Boom! However, before the armored ghost general could react, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul's attacks had already swept over. An even more intense battle resounded at the bottom of the cliff. The battle broke out very suddenly, and it also ended very quickly. The armored ghost general's true cultivation was much stronger than the two ancient demon clan members. Although he had not yet reached the divine emperor realm, he was far stronger than ordinary peak emperors. However, under the combined power of Qin Yu, the dragon soul, the five gods' heaven subduing array, and the ghost eye of extermination, the armored ghost general was killed. That armored ghost general had been forcefully slain. Among the four powers, the ghost eye of extermination contributed the most, and it had a strong suppressive effect on the armored ghost general. Chi! After devouring the ghost general's ghostly aura, the ghost eye of extermination immediately changed. Beams of mysterious ghostly light shone from the ghostly patterns. When the ghost eye of extermination closed, the black, ghostly light that appeared faintly glowed white. Chapter 509. Gotcha. In the next moment, a crack appeared on the ghost eye of annihilation. The faint white light in the dark pupil of the ghost eye of annihilation became more and more intense. Soon, the entire ghost eye of annihilation was surrounded by the white light, like a cocoon. Qin Yu, who was using the soul-devouring curse to capture the soul of the armored ghost general, couldn't help but exclaim softly, "The ghost eye of annihilation can still evolve." Qin Yu was quite surprised when he sensed the increasing number of cracks and the white light of the ghost eye of annihilation becoming more and more intense. Qin Yu didn't know much about the ghost eye of annihilation. He only knew that it was a supreme secret technique of the Ghost Clan. The fact that the ghost eye of annihilation could evolve and evolve was beyond Qin Yu's expectation. What kind of magical effect will the evolved ghost eye of annihilation have? At the moment when the armored ghost general was killed by Qin Yu, Heaven Territory, Central Continent, Ghost Emperor Holy Island. Pung. An explosion could be heard coming from an ancient palace. Something happened in the Ghost Clan's sealed realm? An Emperor Realm Master, who was sitting cross-legged in the palace, instantly sensed it. When he looked closely, his face changed drastically. At the end of the palace, there was a statue of a god that was dozens of meters tall. The face of the statue couldn't be seen clearly. It had 6 arms, and in the palm of each arm, there was a ceramic statue. At this moment, one of the 6 ceramic statues had already shattered. Someone invaded the Ghost Clan's sealed realm and killed a ghost general. The Emperor Realm Master immediately came back to his senses and quickly flew away. Soon, there was a commotion among the higher-ups of the Ghost Emperor Holy Island. Then, many core Emperor Realm Masters and elders quietly disappeared from the Holy Island. Ghost Clan's sealed realm. Qin Yu sensed that the ghost eye of annihilation wouldn't end in a short period of time. Qin Yu closed his eyes. Immediately, the ghost eye of annihilation disappeared from his eyes. Immediately after, with a thought from Qin Yu, that ghost general's soul was immediately refined. Qin Yu had always been curious about the mystery of the disappearance of the Ghost Clan. Now that there was a chance, Qin Yu naturally wanted to find out more. Very quickly, Qin Yu obtained the Ghost General's memories. Qin Yu had yet to figure out the mystery behind the disappearance of the Ghost Clan. Qin Yu, on the other hand, knew about the advancement of the Ghost Eyes of Extermination. This Ghost Eye of Annihilation was not formed by an ordinary Ghost Race Master, but by the Ghost Race's first Ghost Ancestor. The Ghost Clan called it the Ghost Ancestor's Divine Eye. As for why the Ghost Eye of Extermination would appear in the Sky Dragon continent, it was unknown. However, Qin Yu was greatly tempted by the divine abilities that appeared after the Ghost Eye of Extermination was transformed into the Gui Zhu Divine Eyes. Ghost Dao Seal. As the name implied, the Ghost Ancestor's Divine Eye not only had the ability to destroy and seal spirits, it also had the ability to suppress all Ghost Dao techniques. In addition, Qin Yu also received an important piece of news. Before the appearance of the Ghost King Stone, the entrance to the Ghost Clan's secret realm had always been controlled by the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island. He did not know if the disappearance of the Ghost Clan had anything to do with the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island. However, many of the strange divine abilities and secret techniques of the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island came from the Ghost Clan or were derived from the Ghost Clan's secret techniques. Obviously, the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island should have obtained the inheritance of the Ghost Clan in the past. This was also why Qin Yu was tempted. When the Ghost Eye of Extermination was transformed into the Ghost Ancestor's Divine Eye, the many Ghost Dao secret techniques of the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island will be completely ineffective against him. The reason why the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island could become a top force in the Central Continent was not only because of the Ghost Emperor Jintian's arrayed Dao attainments. Its special Ghost Dao secret techniques were the most troublesome to deal with. Once the Ghost Dao secret techniques were ineffective against Qin Yu, the threat of the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island to him would plummet. At that time, after destroying the sacrificial evil god dynasty, Qin Yu would be able to deal with the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island. The Ghost Emperor Jintian's arrayed Dao technique was an important reason why Qin Yu could not escape. Therefore, before he went to deal with Xing Luo, the Ghost Emperor's sacred island must be destroyed. Thinking of this, Qin Yu did not even study the snow immortal imprint carefully for the time being. He went all the way into the depths of the secret realm. In the depths of this secret realm, the Ghost Emperor's sacred island seemed to have been planning something. Although the armored Ghost General was a member of the Ghost Clan, he was controlled by the Ghost Emperor's sacred island with a secret technique. In other words, the armored Ghost General was equivalent to the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island's guard. However, the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island's secret technique was very mysterious, and the armored Ghost General did not know about it. Qin Yu only knew all of this after breaking the secret technique after soul refining. According to the secret technique, there were 5 other armored generals in the Ghost Emperor Mystic Realm. The 6 of them guarded the 6 directions of the secret realm and strengthened the barrier of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island. The center of the secret realm was hidden in the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island's secret in the Ghost Clan's secret realm. After about half an hour, Qin Yu arrived at the Bone Palace of the Armored General. After entering the Bone Palace, Qin Yu used the Heaven Evasion Thief technique to pass through the barrier set up by the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island. That is, after passing through the barrier, Qin Yu stood in place and looked at the void in front of him. The place where Qin Yu was currently at was an endless void. It was like a vast starry sky. In the center of the void, there was an ancient altar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. The altar was surrounded by countless mysterious ancient runes, and it was mysterious and unfathomable. Majestic and pure ghost chi was whistling and gathering. On the ancient altar, there was a skeleton that was tens of thousands of feet tall. It was not appropriate to call a skeleton. At first glance, it looked like a person who was so hungry that he was only skin and bones. The skeleton had 6 arms, and there were faces on the front and back of its head. Although it appeared to be a human, Qin Yu was able to sense a bone-chilling demonic sensation from its body. It was definitely not a human. However, there was no ghost aura on it. At this moment, the skeleton with 2 faces and 6 arms was staring at him. It was dead silent as it stood on the ancient altar, looking like a corpse. However, Qin Yu could still sense it. There was a weak but extremely tenacious life force within the 2-faced, 6-armed skeleton. On the altar around the skeleton, there were countless ancient divine runes and curse chains. They pierced through the skeleton's body and sealed it. This is the first time I've seen such a creature. Qin Yu's experience in his previous life could be said to be extraordinary. However, he still couldn't tell what kind of creature this skeleton was. This altar seems to be the heaven-suppressing sacred altar, the heaven-suppressing Ghost Emperor's natal divine weapon. In the Dragon God Ancient Seal, the dragon soul slowly said after looking at the ancient altar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. This is not the heaven-suppressing sacred altar. Qin Yu had fought with the heaven-suppressing Ghost Emperor several times in his previous life. He could tell at a glance whether it was the heaven-suppressing sacred altar or not. Because of this, Qin Yu was able to tell. The ancient altar in front of him was not much weaker than the heaven-suppressing sacred altar in terms of power. In other words, this was a true divine weapon that was comparable to the heaven-suppressing sacred altar. What is the purpose of the Ghost Emperor Holy Island? The dragon soul's gaze moved away from the ancient altar and looked at the empty void. No matter what their purpose is, it's right to destroy it first. A cold smile appeared on Qin Yu's face as he looked at the countless divine rune curse chains that pierced through the skeleton on the ancient altar. Chapter 5:10. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Yu immediately moved. Using the heaven evasion stealing technique, he traversed through many barriers in the void. Soon, Qin Yu arrived in front of the altar. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After staring at it for a while, Qin Yu immediately saw through the barriers. The spirit array disc in his left hand trembled slightly, and mysterious ancient runes emerged. Kacha kacha. Not long after, clear and audible cracking sounds could be heard. On the 10,000 feet tall altar, the ancient divine rune chains began to break apart one after another. The heaven-suppressing Ghost Emperor's attainments in Array Dao were extraordinary, and Qin Yu's immortal treasury array, Dao, was not inferior to his. After the formation array's barrier was seen through, Qin Yu was able to easily break through it. Every time an ancient rune chain broke, the vitality of the double-faced, six-armed skeleton would become stronger. Chi-Chi. After Qin Yu deciphered several hundred divine marks and ancient runes, he suddenly felt a frightening pressure descend upon him. Qin Yu's movements slightly stopped. He raised his head and looked. The right eye of the gigantic skeleton, with 2 faces and 6 arms, opened slightly for a split second. A gaze as deep as the starry sky appeared from its left eye and fell on Qin Yu. When their eyes met, Qin Yu felt a terrifying consciousness that was like a physical entity trying to invade his soul sea. The divine dragon ancient seal trembled, and a supreme dragon pressure swept out like a hurricane. That terrifying consciousness was directly shattered before it could enter Qin Yu's soul sea. In his previous life, when he was besieged by Star Luo and the 12 ancient emperors, Qin Yu's soul was able to enter reincarnation because of the help of the divine dragon ancient seal. Although the double-faced, 6-armed skeleton's consciousness was frighteningly powerful, it was impossible for it to invade Qin Yu's soul sea. Seeing that his consciousness was directly shattered by Qin Yu, a hint of shock seemed to flash through the deep eyes of the double-faced, 6-armed skeleton. What kind of creature is this? Qin Yu's expression changed slightly. The double-faced, 6-armed skeleton's cultivation was definitely at the peak of the Saint Grade Emperor realm at its peak. In other words, this was an existence on the same level as his previous life. The Ghost Emperor's sacred island had actually sealed such a person, or their intentions. Seeing the skeleton with 2 faces and 6 arms, it didn't take any further action. Qin Yu pondered for a moment and began to crack the barrier again. If they released such a battle force, it would be enough to give the Ghost Emperor's sacred island a headache. Crack, crack. Under Qin Yu's unceasing attacks, clear and audible cracking sounds were unceasingly being heard. 2 of the ancient runes on the skeleton's body had already been unsealed. The aura it emitted was becoming more and more powerful. Moreover, the more ancient divine rune chains were shattered, the faster the skeleton absorbed the ghost energy. He, who was originally just skin and bones, seemed to have been reborn. His body seemed to have become full. After about 3 hours, Qin Yu, who had cracked nearly half of the enchantment, suddenly changed his expression. The barrier was triggered. The dragon's soul also sensed something. At the moment when the intent heaven evasion thief technique passed through the barrier outside, Qin Yu had secretly left behind a detection method. Now that those sensing barriers had been triggered, it meant that someone had come. The double-faced, 6-armed skeleton, who was crazily absorbing the ghost energy, opened its eyes slightly again. Obviously, it had also discovered something. Ghost Emperor Sacred Island? Qin Yu's eyes flashed slightly. At this time, it was most likely the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island who could enter the Ghost Clan's secret realm and come here. There is the fluctuation of a Saint Grade Emperor realm. After the dragon's soul sensed it carefully, its eyes became a little solemn. It seems that this place is indeed very important to the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island. If it was a Saint Grade Emperor realm, Qin Yu could only retreat. Although, with his current means, if he took the initiative, he could already completely kill a top Emperor Realm Master. But a Saint Grade Emperor Realm Master was not comparable to a top Emperor Realm Master. Dragon Soul, get ready, Qin Yu said to the Dragon Soul. Don't worry. The Dragon Soul formed a mysterious eel with both hands and fully activated its space-time ability. Xiao. Qin Yu did not hesitate at all and flicked his finger. A special array flag from the Spirit Array disc was directly inserted into the double-faced, 6-armed creature's forehead. After the double-faced, 6-armed creature was slightly stunned, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in its eyes. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as Qin Yu finished his action, the sound of something breaking through the air came from the vast void. Dozens of figures appeared in this vast void, as if they had teleported. Judging from their clothes, they were the Emperor Realm Masters of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island. Half of the six-armed demon god seal has been broken. How is it possible? This is the supreme sealing array left behind by the first Ghost Emperor. Damn it, who is that guy? When the Emperor Realm Masters of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island arrived, they saw that half of the seal on the altar had been broken. Their faces changed drastically, as if they had seen something terrible. Even the two divine emperors who were leading the group felt the same way. Space-time turbulence. At this time, the dragon soul, who had been prepared, immediately took action. The mysterious and vast space-time force vibrated. The scene was like a stormy sea, and in an instant, the void turned into a world of destruction. All the Emperor Realm Masters of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island were caught in the destructive turbulence. Buzz. Almost at the same time as the dragon soul took action, a mysterious spirit array appeared in Qin Yu's palm. Oh no, it's the boundary-breaking teleportation array. The two saint-grade emperors of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island immediately noticed it. They immediately used their unparalleled power to shatter the space-time turbulence of the dragon soul and cast their secret techniques together, trying to stop Qin Yu. Unfortunately, they were still a step too late. Before Qin Yu came, he was prepared for the possible danger, so he was already prepared to retreat. A deep void crack appeared in the void around Qin Yu. Qin Yu's entire body was swept away by the mysterious spiritual array and disappeared into the crack. Don't worry about him. Quickly set up the seal array. No matter what, we can't let the six-armed ghost demon escape. After the two saint-grade emperors of the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island had gloomy, murderous intent in their eyes, they ignored Qin Yu and immediately rushed toward the altar with their people. Boom! However, the sound of the sky cracking could be heard. With the 10,000-foot-tall altar as the center, huge cracks appeared in the void. Bang! Bang! A series of extremely low and soul-crushing sounds could be heard, like the footsteps of a giant. When the Ghost Emperor Sacred Island's people heard this, their faces changed again. Boom! In the next moment, the enormous altar was completely blasted apart. An incomparably domineering figure emerged from the shattered altar. Although only half of the figure's body was left, it was still entangled by countless divine inscriptions and ancient chains. However, the power it exuded seemed to be able to crush the 9 heavens and 10 earths, and the void showed signs of collapsing. Finally, he's out. The six-armed ghost demon, who had been sealed by the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island, stepped out in the air under the horrified gazes of the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island's people. Go back and inform the Ghost Emperor. When the two saint-grade emperors of the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island saw this, their hearts sank and their faces turned pale. Chapter 511. At this time, Qin Yu appeared somewhere in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm. It seems that the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the others are being held back. The dragon soul looked in the direction of the bone palace of the Ghost General who had been killed, although it was far away and there were countless barriers and barriers. But the dragon soul could still sense that there was an extremely terrifying fluctuation of Tao art emanating from that direction. Obviously, Qin Yu's last resort had freed the double-faced six-armed creature. Now it was fighting with the Ghost Emperor Holy Island and the others. I guess the entire Ghost Emperor Holy Island will take action. It's better to leave quickly. After taking a look, Qin Yu immediately left the Ghost Clan's mystic realm, although he didn't know what the double-faced, six-armed demon god was. But obviously, it was extremely important to the Ghost Emperor Holy Island. Qin Yu helped it escape, so the Ghost Emperor Holy Island would definitely take action. Maybe even the Ghost Emperor Gentian would come in person. Qin Yu didn't want to meet the Ghost Emperor Gentian and the others face to face. Not long after, Qin Yu returned to the ancient altar in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm. After looking at his surroundings, Qin Yu directly flew into the sky and left. Along the way, Qin Yu found that the number of Emperor Realm Masters in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm was far more than when he arrived. When he refined an Emperor Realm Master who wanted to kill him, Qin Yu found out. Before he appeared, a wave of ghost chi similar to the Ghost King Stone appeared in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm. That wave was extremely ancient and obvious. All the Emperor Realm Masters in the Ghost Clan's mystic realm sensed it instantly. This news spread quickly and naturally attracted countless great forces. After refining his soul, Qin Yu, who was about to leave the Ghost Clan's mystic realm, thought about it and decided to stay. In terms of time, when that ancient wave appeared, it just so happened that it was Qin Yu who was breaking the seal of the six-armed ghost god. Since the seal of the six-armed demon god was related to this Ghost Clan's mystic realm, if it completely broke the seal, it would definitely have a huge impact on this mystic realm. Therefore, Qin Yu wanted to see if the Ghost Clan's mystic realm would be exposed. Would Ghost Emperor Zhen Tian come personally because of this? Rumble. After waiting for more than half an hour, Yi Zichen finally opened his mouth. A series of earth-shattering explosions came from the depths of the dark ghost land. Then, in the deep void of the ghost underworld land, a huge chaotic void appeared. A terrifying six-armed ghostly figure appeared in the chaotic void. Accompanying the appearance of the six-armed ghostly figure were dozens of figures with terrifying auras. Could it be that he's not from the Qingyun realm? Qin Yu's eyes flickered. The strength of the six-armed demon god was indeed formidable. Despite fighting against dozens of Ghost Emperor Sacred Island's top experts, he was not at a disadvantage at all. One had to know that this was because the six-armed demon god had been sealed for who knew how many years. His current cultivation was far from reaching its peak. Even so, he was still able to fight against dozens of Ghost Emperor Sacred Island's experts. If he recovered to his peak, wouldn't it be possible for him to break through to the Emperor realm? Could it be that the six-armed demon god came from the immortal, seeking ancient road? The battle ended very quickly. Although the six-armed demon god was powerful, he had to retreat as more and more experts from the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island came to his aid. Qin Yu did not see Ghost Emperor Zhen Tian appear, so he did not stay and immediately turned to leave. Qin Yu was very satisfied with this result. As long as the six-armed demon god escaped, he would definitely be a huge threat to the Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island. Now, Xing Luo was entangled with Sky-burying Sword Immortal, and he had even joined forces with Dragon Tiger Emperor and Emperor God Tian Yuan. Ghost Emperor's Sacred Island had such an existence to deal with. For Qin Yu, who had reached the Emperor realm and would gradually step into the world of top experts in the Qingyun realm, there were only advantages and no disadvantages. Because as long as he did not reveal his identity, Xing Luo and the others would not notice him for the time being. Yeah, that's Qin Yu, who was flying away from the underworld ghostland, saw a group of emperors flying past, and his eyes paused. Heavenly oasis, holy land of the central continent. Is it the blood demon's enemy? The dragon soul also recognized them. During the trip to the blood demon continent, Qin Yu and the blood demon had a verbal agreement that he would help the blood demon destroy his enemy's orthodoxy. Do you want to take action? The dragon's soul asked. He knew Qin Yu's principle of doing things, and he would never go back on his word. Qin Yu shook his head slightly and did not want to cause any trouble. He had promised the blood demon that he would destroy the blood demon's enemy forces when his cultivation reached the peak. Moreover, Qin Yu had not confirmed the information about the immortal treasure that the blood demon had told him yet. These things could only be discussed in the future. Now, his main focus was to deal with Xing Luo and the 12 ancient emperors. Once his enemies were killed, it would be easy for him to fulfill his promise to the blood demon. 1.5 months later, Qin Yu passed through the barren state and returned to Heavenly Imperial Palace in the spiritual state. As soon as Qin Yu returned, he immediately sensed the tense atmosphere in Heavenly Imperial Palace. Not long after, Shi Tiangang and the others, who had learned of Qin Yu's return, immediately asked Qin Yu to go to the sacred palace. The sacrificial evil godly dynasty is making a move again. Qin Yu's eyes flashed as he read the information that Shi Tiangang had given him. He had returned this time to find an opportunity to ask Heavenly Imperial Palace to attack the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. He did not expect the sacrificial evil godly dynasty to make a move again. Compared to the last time when they were ambushed, Heavenly Imperial Palace immediately knew about the sacrificial evil godly dynasty's movements. That's right. I don't know what method the sacrificial evil godly dynasty used to unite two top forces. Now, the three top forces have formed an alliance and are attacking openly. Shi Tiangang nodded slightly and said seriously. This scene surprised many core sovereigns of Heavenly Imperial Palace. Shi Tianggang's attitude toward Qin Yu had undergone a change that even they were able to clearly sense. That change was much greater than when Qin Yu saved Heavenly Imperial Palace and was made the Sacred Prince. However, when they remembered that Qin Yu could completely control the chaotic sky divine array, they were relieved. Qin Yu, who could control the chaotic sky divine array, was far more powerful than the top sovereigns. Now, Qin Yu was on equal footing with them, whether in terms of status or strength. Palace Master, Heavenly Imperial Palace should also have an alliance with a big force, right? Qin Yu looked away from the information in his hand. Since the last battle, Heavenly Imperial Palace had not been idle at all. While deploying the defense, they had been constantly drawing in the forces of the spiritual state. Of course, this time, the sacrificial evil godly dynasty has joined forces with the ancient Cold Island and the Xinyuan family. We have formed an alliance with the Sage Divine Dynasty and the Heavenly Sun Holy Land. Now, the top experts of the two sects have arrived. Shi Tiangang did not hide such a secret information. The fact that Qin Yu could control the chaotic sky divine array was a factor that he took seriously. However, more than that, it was because Qin Yu was very likely to be a reincarnator, so he did not dare to underestimate him. In that case, isn't it? Qin Yu's expression changed slightly. That's right. Among the 7 top forces of the spiritual state, except for the most powerful Wanwu sect, which has remained neutral. The 6 of us are divided into 2 factions, the East and the West. Sun Yunlang said. Chapter 512. There were 7 top forces in the 4 regions of the spiritual state. Now, they were divided into 2 factions with the Heavenly Imperial Palace and the Sacrificial Evil Court as the center. The outcome of this battle would completely change the power structure of the spiritual state. Shun Feng, you'll be in charge of the chaotic sky divine array this time. Of course, after what happened last time, they'll definitely target you. So, you'll focus on defense and support. You don't need to take the risk of attacking. Shi Tiangang said, Palace Lord, have you ever thought about completely destroying the sacrificial evil court to get rid of all future troubles? Qin Yu said slowly after thinking for a while. Of course, I've thought about this, but the sacrificial evil court's foundation is not below ours. Just like how they can't destroy us, we can't destroy them completely either. Shi Tiangang said, if I have a way to completely destroy the sacrificial evil court's imperial palace, would you like to give it a try? Qin Yu said through voice transmission. His words were shocking. You. Hearing this, Shi Tianggang's eyes flashed with extreme shock. Fortunately, he was also a scheming person, so he didn't lose his composure in public. We've almost finished discussing the details. Now, let's go and prepare. Shi Tiangang looked deeply at Qin Yu and said to the other core sovereigns and elders in the hall. Those sovereigns and elders left to make their own preparations, leaving only Qin Yu behind. But soon, Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang came back quietly. Although Shi Tiangang had concealed the shock in his eyes very well, but he still couldn't escape the eyes of Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang. They knew that something must have happened for Shi Tiangang to be so shocked. Shin Feng, you said that you have a way to destroy the sacrificial evil court's imperial palace. What do you mean? Shi Tiangang looked at Qin Yu with a rather solemn expression. The sacrificial evil court's imperial palace was equivalent to the heavenly imperial palace. Once the imperial palace was destroyed, the sacrificial evil court would lose its foothold. The sacrificial evil court's territory would immediately be invaded by other forces and become the eye of the storm. At that time, even if the experts of the sacrificial evil court survived, they would be like stray dogs, greatly weakened. In a top force, the most powerful sovereign master was of paramount importance. However, the foundation of their existence was equally important. This was because their new forces and backup resources were all left in their headquarters. For any faction to have a long legacy, new forces and cultivation resources were of the utmost importance. Just like the previous war between the three sects, the Jixia celestial dynasty wanted to break into the heavenly imperial palace and kill everyone in the heavenly imperial palace, causing a gap in the heavenly imperial palace's inheritance. He can destroy the imperial palace of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang, who had just arrived, couldn't help but narrow their eyes when they heard Tai Mengen's words. No wonder Shi Tiangang was so shocked before this. This news also caused them to be extremely shocked. Sun Jiuxia and Sun Yunlang exchanged glances with each other while they were still in shock. Qin Yu actually said that he had a way to destroy the sacrificial evil god dynasty's imperial palace. This made them even more suspicious of Qin Yu's samsara identity. The sacrificial evil court has joined forces with two top forces to invade again. This means that they are quite confident that they can completely destroy us. Therefore, the sacrificial evil court will definitely move out in full force this time. As long as all the experts of the sacrificial evil court are mobilized, I am confident that I can sneak into the sacrificial evil court and destroy the imperial palace from the inside. Qin Yu still didn't know that Shi Tiangang and the other two had already begun to suspect that he was a samsara traveler. However, even if he knew, Qin Yu didn't care much. As long as he didn't expose the true identity of the dragon god sovereign, Qin Yu wasn't worried about Sky Emperor Palace's guesses. Sky Emperor Palace wouldn't do anything to him before he refined the immortal Emperor elixir. Shenfeng, what do you think of the chaotic sky divine array in our palace? Shi Tiangang looked at Qin Yu seriously for a while before he spoke slowly. It's very powerful. If a top sovereign master controls it, it can definitely fight a divine sovereign. Qin Yu said without hesitation. Qin Yu had personally experienced the power of the chaotic sky divine array, so he still had some reservations about this statement. If he had the cultivation of a top sovereign master, he wouldn't need to rely on other means. Just the chaotic sky divine array alone would be able to kill a divine sovereign. Then do you know that the sacrificial evil court also has a great protective array called the Evil Emperor Divine Realm? The Evil Emperor Divine Realm was left behind by the first God Emperor of the sacrificial evil court. It is said that it evolved from the immemorial divine array. In terms of power, it is no weaker than the chaotic sky divine array. Shi Tiangang said seriously. His words were the truth of the sacrificial evil court, and also the intention to test Qin Yu. If Qin Yu knew and had a way to break it, then it was basically certain that Qin Yu was a samsara traveler. The evil Emperor Divine Realm was as troublesome to deal with as the sacrificial evil court feared the chaotic sky divine array. It was also because of this that Sky Emperor Palace had launched several attacks on the sacrificial evil court. Every time, they stopped in front of the evil Emperor Divine Realm. I have heard of it. Qin Yu was naturally familiar with the evil Emperor Divine Realm. In his previous life, the sacrificial evil emperor had used it. Since you have heard of it, do you think you could destroy the sacrificial evil court's imperial palace? Shi Tiangang and the other two stared at Qin Yu seriously. Of course, because I have a way to break the evil Emperor Divine Realm, Qin Yu said directly. This guy, the corner of Shi Tianggang's eye twitched, and the shock in his eyes deepened. What kind of existence is this samsara? Sun Jiuxiao and Sun Yunlang were even more shocked. If what Qin Yu said was true, then his identity as a samsara traveler couldn't be wrong. The evil Emperor Divine Realm. Even in the sacrificial evil court, Only the god emperors of each generation can fully activate it. Other than that, even the members of the imperial family don't know about it. Are you sure you can break it? Sure, Tiangang asked directly. I received a formation inheritance in the past, and it just so happens that it contains the method to break the evil emperor divine realm, said Qin Yu indifferently. He also knew that Shi Tiangang and them would definitely become suspicious after hearing what he said. However, the perfect opportunity to destroy the sacrificial evil court was right in front of them. It was necessary to reveal some of his trump cards. Tell me about your plan. Sure, Tiangang didn't pursue the matter, but he was a little excited. If Qin Yu could really break the evil Emperor Divine Realm, it would be a great opportunity for them. The sacrificial evil court was a huge threat to the heavenly imperial palace, so sure Tiangang naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. My plan is as follows. As long as we can confirm that the sacrificial evil court is mobilizing all of their forces, we will split into two groups. Let's split into two groups. One group will keep them busy while the other will attack the sacrificial evil god dynasty. Once we destroy the imperial palace, the news will spread. At that time, the alliance between the three sects of the sacrificial evil court will be shaken. As long as everything goes well, we can attack from both sides and destroy the sacrificial evil court in one fell swoop. If there's a chance, the sacrificial evil court's allies might even turn against us. Before going to the Dark Ghost Land, Qin Yu had infiltrated the sacrificial evil court many times, so he had a specific plan in mind. Chapter 513. The premise of Qin Yu's plan was that he had to know the foundation of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. Only by knowing the foundation of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty could he be sure that they would not go all out. Otherwise, even if they could break the evil emperor godly realm, they would not be able to completely destroy the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. If they were held back like last time by heavenly imperial palace, they would be pincered by the army of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. We do know the foundation of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty. Shi Tiangang, Sun Jiuxiao, and Sun Yunlang looked at each other and fell into deep thought. Although heavenly imperial palace did not know the foundation of the sacrificial evil godly dynasty very well, it was at least much better than the other factions. Of course, even if the sacrificial evil godly dynasty went all out, Qin Yu's plan was still very risky. After all, not only could Qin Yu not control the chaotic sky divine formation, but he also had to go to the sacrificial evil godly dynasty personally. For heavenly imperial palace, Qin Yu's safety was the most important thing. After all, they had already found 3 of the 4 divine herbs and news of the immortal spirit grass. If the sacrificial evil godly dynasty had not suddenly joined forces with the other 2 factions, heavenly imperial palace would have already gone to find the immortal spirit grass. Palace Master, if the sacrificial evil godly dynasty really goes all out, then this will be a great opportunity. Not only will we be able to destroy the sacrificial evil godly dynasty, but we will also be able to intimidate the other factions. Once this chaos is over, no one will be able to shake our position in the spiritual state. Seeing that Shi Tiangang and the other 2 were deep in thought, Qin Yu spoke again. Shi Tiangang's eyes flashed as he was tempted. Heavenly Imperial Palace's situation in the spiritual state had become more and more delicate. That was why they were so anxious to reignite the bloodline of the 3 sovereigns. If they could really destroy the sacrificial evil godly dynasty, then it would be a great opportunity to establish their authority in the spiritual state. Shun Feng, are you the only one who can break the evil emperor godly realm? Sun Yunlang said when he heard Su Mo's words. Heavenly Imperial Palace did not have an emperor-grade alchemist. Sun Yunlang and Elder Pang. One was an emperor-grade alchemist, and the other was an emperor-grade array master. If Qin Yu told them the method, they might be able to master it. This way, Qin Yu wouldn't have to take the risk. Elder Sun, if you had enough time, it would not be difficult for you and Elder Pang to master it. However, I'm afraid you don't have the time now. With that, Qin Yu waved his hand, and an ancient scroll appeared, which flew towards Sun Yunlang. Sun Yunlang took the ancient scroll. His sovereign spirit surged as he sensed the scroll. Shi Tiangang and Sun Jiuxiao also looked at Sun Yunlang. It's an immemorial divine rune. After a while, Sun Yunlang, who had broken the seal on the scroll, was shocked. The primordial divine rune was a divine rune unique to the primordial era. It contained the divine charm of the primordial era. This was the reason why the immemorial divine arrays far surpassed the spiritual arrays of today. I'll need at least 3 months to completely master these primordial divine runes, Sun Yunlang said to Shi Tiangang and Sun Jiuxiao. As he spoke, the shock in his eyes grew even more intense. Qin Yu said that there was a way to break the evil Emperor God realm. This meant that Qin Yu's current array Dao attainments had reached the level of an Emperor Great Array Inscription Master. In fact, he was not inferior to Elder Pang in him. If that's the case, let's get started. Shi Tiangang was also a decisive person. Since he knew that this was a great opportunity, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Immediately, the 4 of them discussed the specific details of the plan. This time around, Qin Yu was not the only one who was going. Heavenly Imperial Palace needed to send at least 4 top emperors. Only then could they quickly destroy the Imperial Palace of the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty before the army of the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty could react. They would completely destroy the new strength of the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty. With 4 top emperors and Qin Yu, Heavenly Imperial Palace's top combat power would be reduced by nearly half. If they hadn't joined forces with the Saint Divine Dynasty and Heavenly Sun Holy Land, this plan would have been impossible to implement. With Heavenly Imperial Palace's strength, it was impossible to divide so many top emperors. Soon, the 4 of them finished their discussion, and Qin Yu left the temple. Shi Tiangang, Sun Jiuxiao, and Sun Yunlang began to discuss again. Not only did they discuss Qin Yu's plan, but they also discussed Qin Yu's identity as a reincarnator. This plan requires us to act together with the Heavenly Emperor Palace and others. I'm afraid that we will expose our trump cards. They might even suspect our identity. After Qin Yu returned to his residence, the dragon soul immediately appeared from the divine dragon ancient seal. In fact, when Qin Yu proposed the plan to Heavenly Imperial Palace, the dragon soul felt that something was wrong. The dragon soul still felt that the best time to deal with the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty was when AOD arrived and went to the tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Because as long as Qin Yu obtained an opportunity in the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, his strength would rise to another level. At that time, Qin Yu would have a much greater chance of success. We can't miss this opportunity. If we miss this chance, we will have to redeploy our forces and create an opportunity to destroy the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty again. As for Heavenly Imperial Palace, even if they have doubts, they don't have to worry. At least we have the same goal as them when it comes to the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty, Qin Yu said. But this way, when the Immortal Emperor pills are successfully refined, there might be trouble. This was what the Dragon Soul was worried about. As Qin Yu said, Heavenly Imperial Palace now needed Qin Yu to refine the Immortal Emperor pills. Therefore, even if they had doubts, they would not do anything now. However, once the 4 divine herbs were found and the Immortal Emperor pills were successfully refined, Heavenly Imperial Palace would not be so easy to deal with. No faction would allow someone who they didn't know to stay in their territory forever. We can only talk about this when the time comes. Qin Yu had naturally thought about this. But now he was no longer the weak cultivator who had just arrived at the spiritual state. Therefore, no matter how Heavenly Imperial Palace would react in the future, Qin Yu now had to borrow the power of Heavenly Imperial Palace to destroy the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty. After talking for a while, Qin Yu began to make preparations. Even if the Sacrificial Evil God Dynasty really came out in full force, they would definitely not hold back. Qin Yu could not predict what kind of accident would happen at that time. Therefore, before taking action, Qin Yu had to make comprehensive preparations. Only when he was completely prepared did Qin Yu take out the Snow Fairy imprint. After returning from the underworld Ghostland, Qin Yu was called by Shi Tiangang for a discussion, and only now did he have time to investigate. After carefully probing, Qin Yu found a wisp of extremely familiar soul power fluctuation from the Snow Fairy imprint. That wisp of soul power fluctuation was the Snow Lotus Fairy's origin soul power. After sensing this wisp of soul power fluctuation, Qin Yu, who was originally a little worried, immediately relaxed. As long as nothing happened to this wisp of origin soul power, it meant that the Snow Lotus Fairy was safe. Of course, while feeling relieved, Qin Yu also felt a little regretful. This Snow Fairy imprint did not have any clues about the world of ice and snow. It seemed that he could only wait until his cultivation was completely recovered in the future, and then Qin Yu would think of a way to find out what that world of ice and snow was. Chapter 514. As the six top forces formed an alliance, the atmosphere became tense. During this period, the entire spiritual state became extremely oppressive, as if a destructive storm was about to strike. The other forces that had been fighting chaotically all quieted down at this moment. All the forces were waiting for the result of the six-sect war. Many of the major forces were ready to make a move. The Great War of the Six Sects was an excellent opportunity for them to rise. No matter which side lost, they would benefit from it. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Dong, dong, dong. On this day, the sky had just brightened when a long bell rang in the Sky Emperor Palace. Powerful, murderous auras soared into the sky like prehistoric beasts that were about to awaken. Only the Emperor Realm experts of the three top forces and two super forces were left in the Sky Emperor Palace. The rest of the people, who were below the high-level Martial Emperor Realm, had all left. No one knew what the outcome of this war would be. The Sky Emperor Palace naturally had to be prepared to prevent the worst from happening. Rumble, a shocking power that seemed to be able to crush the void, like a tsunami, came whistling from the distant horizon. Soon, a dense crowd of figures appeared in front of the tens of thousands of experts in the Sky Emperor Palace. In the Sky Emperor Palace, Shi Tiangang, the Holy Master of the Tianyang Holy Land and the Divine Master of the Saint Dynasty stood side by side. Looking at the army of martial artists, Shi Tiangong's eyes narrowed as he sized them up. His attention fell on the people of the sacrificial evil god dynasty. He really isn't here. After sizing them up for a while, a strange look flashed in Shi Tiangong's eyes. The sacrificial evil god dynasty had sent out all their forces. However, they did not see the sacrificial evil god emperor in the six-sect war. The sacrificial evil god dynasty was confident in the previous war between the three sections. Even without God Emperor Ji Xie's intervention, he could still destroy their heavenly imperial palace. The battle between the six sects this time was completely related to each other's life and death. If the sacrificial evil god emperor was here, there was no reason for him not to show up. Could it be, as Shen Feng said, that the sacrificial evil god emperor is no longer in the sacrificial evil god dynasty? In Shi Tiangong's mind, he couldn't help but recall the important information that Qin Yu had told him a few days ago. The Jixia godly emperor had only appeared when the Jixia godly dynasty moved to the northern region of the spirit state. At that time, for some unknown reason, God Emperor Jixia's cultivation had fallen from divine emperor to peak emperor. This was also the main reason why the heavenly imperial palace had dared to go against the sacrificial evil deity dynasty even after the divine emperors had disappeared. However, ever since God Emperor Jixia had stabilized his position, God Emperor Jixia had never appeared. Previously, Shi Tiangang thought that God Emperor Jixia was recovering his cultivation. Now, it would appear that it was truly as Qin Yu said. Palace Master Shi, don't you think there are too few top emperors in Sky Imperial Palace? At that moment, the Holy Master of the Sky, Sun's sacred land, retracted his gaze and looked at Shi Tiangang. The Divine Lord of the Saint Divine Dynasty also looked at Shi Tiangang with a slight frown. According to their intelligence, there were at least 10 top emperors in Heavenly Imperial Palace. Now, however, there were only 6 top emperors in Heavenly Imperial Palace. They were 4 less. The combat strength of 4 top emperors played a decisive role in a battle of this level. It might even decide the outcome of the battle. They did not know what Shi Tiangang was up to when the Heavenly Imperial Palace had not come out. Although the 3 major forces had joined forces, it did not mean that they were willing to fight for the Heavenly Imperial Palace. They were involved in the battle because if the Heavenly Imperial Palace was destroyed, their future in the spirit state would be difficult. If the Heavenly Imperial Palace wanted to scheme against them, they would definitely leave immediately. Brother Tang, please calm down. In fact, we have already launched a strict plan against the Jixia godly dynasty. Shi Tiangang naturally knew what the Sky Sun Sacred Land and the Saint Divine Dynasty were thinking and smiled slightly. Immediately, Shi Tiangang informed them of the plan to split into 2 groups via voice transmission. Except for Qin Yu, Shi Tiangang did not hide the rest of the plan to calm the hearts of the 2 major forces. After all, the Heavenly Imperial Palace needed the help of the Sky Sun Sacred Land and the Saint Divine Dynasty at this time. Otherwise, the Jixia godly dynasty would join forces with the 2 top forces and the several super forces. The Heavenly Imperial Palace alone could not stop them. Isn't this plan a little risky? The Divine Lord of the Saint Divine Dynasty had a look of surprise in his eyes. The battle was imminent, and they did not have time to blame Shi Tiangang for not communicating with them in advance. What they considered were the pros and cons of the plan. It is indeed very risky, which is why I only sent out the people of the Heavenly Imperial Palace. This way, even if there is any danger, we will bear it alone. However, if the plan succeeds, then we can destroy the Jixia godly dynasty in one fell swoop. At that time, we can divide the resources of the Jixia godly dynasty. Therefore, this risk is worth taking. Shi Tiangang said. If that's the case, does that mean we have to change our battle plan? The Lord of the Sky Sun Sacred Land and the Divine Lord of the Saint Divine Dynasty pondered for a moment and guessed Shi Tiangong's next strategy. That's right. Whether the plan goes smoothly or not, we have to focus on defense for the time being. Shi Tiangang nodded. If the attack on the Jixia godly dynasty went smoothly, then they had to hold them back with all their strength. If they encountered any obstacles, then they had to wait for Sun Jiuxiao and the others to return before they could carry out the original plan. Shi Tiangang, we meet again. At this moment, the Jixia godly dynasty, the Xianyuan family, and the ancient Cold Island. Tens of thousands of martial artists from the 3 top forces approached the Heavenly Imperial Palace with a vast pressure. Kong Shaxiong, the Jixia godly emperor, who was wearing a gray robe with black stripes and holding a skeleton staff, stepped forward. He took a step forward and stared at Qin Yu with an extremely gloomy gaze. Haha, I let you escape by luck last time. This time, I won't give you such a chance. Shi Tiangang sneered. Escape by luck? You really dare to boast shamelessly. Kong Shaxiong said sinisterly. You should know whether I am boasting shamelessly or not. Speaking of which, I am quite curious why the Divine Lord of the Jixia godly dynasty has not shown himself. Could it be that he has met with some mishap? The sneer on Shi Tiangong's face deepened. He deliberately said this to the Xianyuan family and the ancient Cold Island. As long as they were suspicious, their combat strength would be affected. Hearing Shi Tiangong's words, the top sovereigns of the Jixia godly dynasty changed their expression slightly. Shi Tiangang actually knew about this matter. This greatly exceeded their expectations. The Heavenly Imperial Palace is now in decline. There is no need for the Divine Lord of the Jixia godly dynasty to deal with you. The corner of Kong Shaxiong's eyes twitched, and the sinister killing intent in his eyes became more terrifying. However, he was also a veteran of many battles, so he could naturally deal with it skillfully. However, he still noticed that the sovereigns of the ancient Cold Island and the Xianyuan family had a strange look in their eyes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.